got me feeling kinda hot. We could be a team, baby, I could be your mascot. Get my name and number on the back of my crop top. Waiting for you way too long. No one feels right and kinda wrong. Got me on repeat, I'm your favorite song. You and me together, yeah, we belong. Now, what's your bag for it? If you want it, claim it. Get on top and tame it. But I'll keep on waiting. If you want me like that, then you gotta say it. You should know I'm patient. Nothing I'm just sitting here without your love. I'm in love, I'm in love. Sitting here without your love. I'm in love, I'm in love. Sitting here without your love. I'm in love, I'm in love. Sitting here without your love. I'm in love, I'm in love. Sitting here without your love. Your love, I'm in love, I'm in love. Sitting here without your love.
Hello, everyone. How are we doing? Today we find out the glasses are just a prop. I fucking wish the glasses were just a prop. I fucking wish I've had LASIK, Smile, whatever procedure it is. One day I will have that procedure. I have asked, I think I'm gonna ask Lycan for that for Christmas next year. Or I guess this year. I want it so badly. I have horrible vision. I was absolutely blind. It leads to me looking like my eyes are glazing over, but I can't focus on anything. I really can't see much further than like in front of my hand when I don't have my glasses on. It's very unfortunate. I've needed them since I was in like kinder, like end of kinder, first grade. So I'm blind. Let's see. I love your RBF eyebrows. So I completely removed all of this part of my eyebrow and all of that part of my eyebrow. And we're just trying new things out. And so they have to be drawn in until they go back in because I don't think I like it, which is a pain in the ass. But that was totally self-imposed, so I can't really complain that much. It looks good. Yeah, I know, because my eyebrows naturally want to go down a lot more and it closes my eyes off. I want them to be like straight. I almost want them to be like Vulcan, but I would have to get rid of like a lot more to be able to do it so it makes sense. And I just don't know if I'm ready to do that because I'm not in makeup 24/7, obviously. So that would mean my eyebrows are like this big without makeup. Balkan? Question mark? What do we mean by this? First time chatter? Just Balkan? Let's see. Okay. So, backstory. A little bit of clickbait. I'm not actively debating Andrew Wilson. That has already been done. I didn't even debate Tim Pool. So I get a message earlier this week from their lovely booker. You want to come on the show? Yes, I want to come on the show. What's the topic? The Salty Squid Stream. Thank you so much for subscribing at tier 1. I really appreciate it. And everybody who's watching who's not subbed, what the hell are you doing? You should be subbed. Like Salty Squid Stream is here. And I asked, okay, what's the topic? And they said the feminization of institutions. No clue what that fucking means. Either way, I don't like to debate without a topic, so they at least gave me like a rough idea of what we're going to be talking about. That's fine because I saw a bunch of angles how this could go. They did tell me the guest in advance. Her name is Jennifer Galardi. She is a former like fitness, like dancer buff person. She's worked with celebrities and shit. She's insane. She believes insane things. Kind, the little that I got to interact with her, but she's crazy. And I'm sure she thinks I'm crazy, so this is fine for me to say. She is also a senior policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation, and she has a master's degree in public policy from Pepperidge Farms, Trinity. I can't remember the name of the university. I looked it up before, and I watched multiple podcasts and that she was on to see like what her commentary is, and she does the like why I left the left grift very, very badly. The thing is that it's only compelling if you have a documented internet footprint of being on the left already online. If you just say you were on the left and that transformation occurred and now you're online and you're on the right, nobody really cares about it as much. You needed to have like done a kind of 360 in public. So to the extent that she had like a public career, it was basically doing this like dance shit and stuff like that. And what's absolutely hilarious about this woman is, of course, and obviously caveat, I have no problem with this life choice. She's a woman who's like in her 40s, married. She has no kids. And yet nonetheless, she's going around telling other women, you need to be in the home. You got to be barefoot and pregnant if you want to be happy. And some women are cut out for work, but generally speaking, you know your fucking place. Even though, again, master's degree, heritage foundation, career woman. What the fuck, lady? How do you... This makes no fucking sense to me. I'm sorry. It really is one of those things. It is entirely possible for somebody to be personally hypocritical and their argument to be entirely valid. That's not a contradiction whatsoever. It's actually fallacious to say that because they're not living by their values, their arguments is bad. But again, you are going to have a hard time making this pitch to women when you yourself cannot even bring yourself to commit to these values because, and it's not that they fucking suck, they're just not for everybody. Not every woman wants children. If anything, she's more likely to be happy than everybody who has fucking kids, according to every single poll that there is. Dinks, which are dual income, no kids, which she is, way more likely to be happy than people that are married that do have kids. She has an education, and there was a bunch of stuff that I wanted to pounce on, but I get there, and Ian Crossland's there. I've met Ian Crossland before. Of course, he doesn't remember me. Very nice to see him. Psychedelic stoner. We love him. Found an unlikely ally. We're going to see that in a bit. And then with him, surprisingly. And then Andrew Wilson is sitting there. Beanie Boy, Tim Pool's nowhere to be found. They didn't tell me Tim Pool wasn't showing up. It was crazy for me that I was under the impression that the Culture War podcast with Tim Pool would be starring Tim Pool, but he was not there. So Andrew Wilson's there. I'm like, oh, cool. Ambush. And then Jennifer, the woman who I was set up to debate, is there. And the topic is now turned into, like, is feminism destroying the West, promoting wokeness and communism? Because they know I'm a communist. Because I told them that I'm a communist last time. Because I'm honest about the fact that I'm a communist. Here's the thing, though. It's really, I don't do, like, navel-gazy debates over communism. And I certainly don't do it when I wasn't told in advance. And I really don't do it with right-wingers unless I know for a fact they're actually interested in having a serious conversation about that economic model, which I cannot verify and attest to when it comes to the Heritage Foundation toady that is literally paid to believe in Project 2025, which I did a brief, run through just to get a sense of like where all her, positions are. It's kind of like an open book exam when you're debating somebody like this, because literally any single thing that I might have like, what does she think about this? Oh, just consult Project 2025. I will know what she thinks about it because she's paid to defend that. And I also knew it was going to be really, really fun to ask her questions I know she wouldn't have the answer to, or that would be very difficult for her to answer, and be like, while being true to herself if they contradicted the positions that she is paid to believe because she works for the Heritage Foundation. So with that being said, let's actually take a quick look at her Twitter. So she has about the same amount of followers as me, 7K. Senior policy analyst, raw at the Heritage Foundation, real food and small farm advocate. When I was watching like different things that she's been in, like she's one of these people that fearmongers surrounding like GMOs. And I'm fine with GMO labeling or whatever, because it actually paradoxically leads to less people being like, buying into fear mongering surrounding them. I used to not really be in favor of the labeling because it gives the impression that like genetically modified organisms are dangerous in some way and they can be bad. There's like the side effect of like monocultures. I can't remember what it is. But yeah, she's one of these people that fear mongers about GMOs, is like really into like homeopathy, alternative medicine, like acupuncture. I didn't hear her say anything about chiropractic, but like her whole thing is basically Maha movement. So I was expecting that to come up, and I was expecting her to like shoehorn in that into the conversation, and it never came up, unfortunately, which would have been fun because we could have talked about all of the insane bullshit that RFK Jr. has been up to and how she was about to give him a gold fucking medal for saying such brave things like, did you know junk food's bad for you? You should eat less processed food. Also, you should exercise more. Wow, groundbreaking stuff. It's not like Michelle Obama was saying this shit back in 2008 and the right lost their fucking mind over it. I digress. But let me see. I created a playlist just of her shit. Which again was totally pointless because I ended up debating Andrew Wilson a lot more, like about as much as I ended up debating this woman. Because he was a moderator and he was actually a really good moderator, but he puts himself in a lot, which is fine. But yeah, which one was it? Why I left the left. Okay. No. There was one in particular that I wanted to show you guys. Okay. Yeah, Maha, our souls and the soil. Is she a raw milk lady? Oh, is she ever? I also wanted that to come up. Did not come up, unfortunately. And there's just no way to, like bring that up naturally without it coming off as very, very contrived. Let me see, like, she has posts that, like, make no fucking sense. Again, like, this first major medical group opposes gender transition surgeries for youth. It's a little bit of a misnomer to say that it opposes it because when you actually look at the statement from the American Society of Plastic Surgeons or whatever it is, it says, generally speaking, people under the age of 19 that are undergoing transition surgery, there's insufficient evidence to say that it's helpful. But that word generally does a lot of heavy lifting. And in general, it's already rare for minors who are transitioning to undergo surgery to the extent that minors are getting gender affirming care surgeries. My understanding is we're talking about 17-year-old trans dudes that have crippling dysphoria and are ready for top surgery and they're 3 months shy of their 18th birthday. That's the minors are being trans type instances. But I don't I was waiting for them to bring this up. They did not bring this up, surprisingly. But yeah, so she quote tweets this COVID playbook, and they will keep doing it until we stop being insane and listening to the experts, the quote unquote experts. Yeah, what an honor to sit down with at Dairy IDFA podcast to discuss what's next for the Maha movement. Again, like a dairy forum. This, I love this. It's so simple. The truth usually is. And I'm like, okay, what the hell is this?
What do you wish more women knew about how men operated?
There's 10,000 times more going on inside the head of a man than you have any idea. He's carrying burdens that you don't have a clue about. And he don't know how to express them, and he don't know what to do about it. And he figures if he puts it out there and communicates it, he's just going to be shot down, called a fool, called weak. So he carries it inside, and you have no clue the burdens and the hell that most men are carrying inside and not even showing you.
Solely. Okay. Real and true, people. Very touching. The montage of Edward Norton, Jake Gyllenhaal, Ryan Gosling, it really sells it. Here's the thing. I'm not going to dunk on the male loneliness crisis. That's another episode. That's later. That'll be a later stream. Okay. The thing is, I'm really sympathetic to this viewpoint. I'm not sympathetic to people who believe the things that she believes, which is that men ought to be the sole breadwinners and providers for their family. I love capitalism. Let's deregulate everything. And don't talk about, therapy is a fucking scam. Also, alternative medicine that's going to do fuck all for you. Yeah, definitely look into that. Stay away from anything that actually has an empirical basis to treat your ailments. Yeah, fuck that. These people, and then they turn around, they wonder, why is there a male loneliness crisis? What the hell's going on with the men in society? It's like, geez, wonder what it could be. Okay, so... I love this. It's so simple. The truth usually is this is true. Okay. Men are complex human beings. Fine. I admit begrudgingly they are. Okay. Been known to happen. It just doesn't make any sense that you believe what she believes and then are confused about why men are like this in society. Okay. Whatever about this. This. Okay. She's like, this. Nailed it. Couldn't have said this any better. She is spot on.
On my page and say that people should be in this country legally. Don't do it.
No! No! Shame! Shame!
He shot her because she was queer.
Are we f***ing great yet? Are we a great country? Is this one? It's f***ing great.
A lot of people are wondering right now how in the world a person's brain
And this is Liberal Women Explained over it.
ends up like this, because this is not how healthy, happy people act. Let me explain. Liberal women are what happens when the natural female instinct to nurture and defend and care for gets misdirected away from families and children and misapplied to whatever the liberal cause of the week is. See, women have...
But conveniently, not when you apply it to the conservative cause of being a senior policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation. Isn't that funny how there's that like little exception carved out?
An innate instinct to support and emotionally connect to vulnerable people. We are designed to be mama bears. And in the absence of a stable and healthy home and family, a woman will find a place to put all of that. The natural instinct to sacrifice yourself for your children gets misapplied in all the wrong directions. You want to know why so many liberal women are out there playing hero for criminal aliens and gender-confused perverts and cultures that hate them? It's because they believe...
I did not finish this when I was looking through her timeline. Oh my God. She basically verbatim, she clearly listened to this and then like regurgitated back a version of this argument to me later in the debate. Oh my God.
Believe they have identified groups of people who need them.
No, this isn't who I was debating. This is just somebody who she like reposted and was like, this, I agree with this.
When no one else does. We destroyed the family and we handed a generation of women a bunch of feminist lies and progressive slop in its place. And this is the natural result.
And this is conservative slop. And there, again, feminism will never be defined. It's just this boogeyman that exists and explains all of the social ills of this world. And all of this, again, like she puts this, like she's like co-signing this. It's just there. This just, I don't know. This is only for, it's in-group signaling. What the FDA doesn't tell women about hormone replacement therapy, like, again, Daily Wire articles written by this woman. Does she have any medical background or expertise in a particular subject area related to health, fitness? No, she was just like a fitness guru, but she's like Jillian Michaels, where the reason why is because she was in the right place, right time, good body, could dance, was charismatic, but it's not because she has any actual education. And I'm not even saying you need a fucking degree in kinesiology to be able to make fitness tapes or whatever. I don't give a fuck about that. I do think that you should probably have some subject level expertise if you're talking about hormone replacement therapy and these sorts of things. And if this shit came up, I was just going to say, you're a moron who doesn't know anything about this. I'm a moron who doesn't know anything about this. We're people on a podcast on the internet, and none of us should be giving medical advice on the fucking internet. Period. Full stop. There's literally no reason anybody should listen to us. There's no reason for us to give input or our opinions. We don't know anything about this. No one should listen to us. You should not be penning articles like this. Christianity is weaponized to pursue leftist chaos. You know this. Yeah, okay. Casper Cosmic Lord, thank you so much for subscribing at tier 1. You've been subscribed for 4 months. I really, really appreciate it. All right. Okay, enough of this. Now let's get into this. Really quick, again, brief overview of this woman. Maha, Our Souls in Our Soil, featuring Jennifer Galardi. So this is 5 months ago. This has 141 views. Every single one of my VODs, even my earliest ones, has more views than this. Even though this channel has like 6,000 subscribers. This week on Moment of Truth, Nick is joined by Jennifer Galardi, senior policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation's Restoring American Wellness Initiative. Jennifer shares her riveting journey from a progressive LA lifestyle to leading the Make America Healthy Again Maha movement. Life has led her through many twists and turns, including time spent in a yoga cult before rediscovering Christianity and diving into health policy. Now she exposes the dangers of fast consumerism, GMOs, and a broken healthcare system. The healthcare system is broken, but the Heritage Foundation doesn't have any solutions for that. Dive deep into discussions about regenerative farming, the pitfalls of big ag, and the cultural shift needed to combat obesity and chronic disease. Jennifer's insights on Ozempic, food dyes, and the spiritual... again, this woman has no insights on Ozempic. you are not a specialist when it comes to obesity. You're not a physician. You're not an endocrinologist. You don't know anything about that. You're not an expert on food dyes. You don't have any hot takes that haven't already been said and are not even necessarily hot takes anymore. Like, wow, you're against Red 40 being ingredient in foods that people eat. Awesome. Very brave. And the spiritual crisis facing America are both compelling and urgent. Don't miss this powerful call to reclaim wellness. Yeah, don't miss this episode where she talks about the importance of like what beef tallow fries and not eating red M&Ms.
Styles are fast, what I call kind of fast problems. Get rich fast, right? Eat fast, exercise fast. Everything's. We demand things now, right? This kind of consumerism of fast. I want it now, and I need it now. So fast money, fast enlightenment, that kind of speaks to the cult aspect, this fast enlightenment. I'm just going to follow a guru and I'll be enlightened, as opposed to the long, slow haul of what Christ asks us to carry the cross every day. So all of these things.
Of carrying the flame every day.
Some responsibility on our part, right, to look how we're behaving. But we got kind of used to this culture. So we demand all these products. And how are we going to meet that demand? Well, it's easier just to spray pesticides and then to create seeds that resist the pesticides, which are GMOs. So they can, because a pesticide will kill everything, right? It's like it's actually kind of an antifungal, antibacterial thing. It'll kill, like in our gut, it'll kill like an antibiotic. It kills everything, even the good stuff. So now we have to have Roundup Ready seeds, which are GMO seeds.
What she's talking about Roundup. So Monsanto created this thing called glyphosate, which later its patent expired, and it was like a pesticide or an herb. It might not even been a pesticide. It might have actually been an herbicide. Glyphosate. Yeah, it's an herbicide. She said it was a pesticide. Obviously, you don't want to be consuming pesticides, but you can safely consume herbicides. They're specifically engineered so that they are safe for consumption, and you're eating like small amounts of them. And we also have like food safety standards, like this idea that like, you know, the fruit that you get, like you need organic, or like the fruit that you're getting at like Walmart, HEB, Target, wherever you get produce, Publix, is not safe for you to consume because of this. It's not true. It's perfectly safe for you to consume, even with GMOs. And here's the real secret. There's no such thing as food that's not genetically modified anymore. There's people that are eating GMOs, and there's people who think they're not eating GMOs, but there's no food right now that you're consuming that wasn't genetically modified in some way.
And it's what
but
happens.
Yeah, this like Roundup Ready seeds or whatever, we're talking about like the inclusion of like that herbicide being used on some of these or whatever. It's not dangerous.
Is eventually this destroys the nutritive value of the soil.
Herbicides are pesticides. Yeah, maybe it's that actually. Wait. Are herbicides and pesticides the same thing? Oh, wait, no, wait. There is a difference. Are these reliable sources? I don't know what I'm doing. Pesticides are used to eliminate pests by either killing or poisoning their target. We consider certain things to be pests if they infringe on our access to food, spread disease, harm the environment, or cause damage to our property. Can refer to insects, mammals, weeds, birds, microorganisms, and these are just to name a few. In order to eliminate these pests, various types of pesticides are used. Oh, wait, yeah, there are. Herbicides, a weed killer that's toxic to plants. Rodenticides used to eliminate rodents, and then pesticides. Yeah. It's a generic term.
Howdy, everyone, and welcome back to Moment of Truth, the podcast of American Moment. My name is Nick Solheim. I am the CEO of American Moment, and I'm very glad to be with you again this week. We had a very fun guest, Jennifer Galardi from the Heritage Foundation, to talk about all things Maha. I feel like we have not done enough Maha content in the last 6 months, so we're hitting you with these.
I mean, probably correct. There was not enough talk about the fact that there was literally a press conference between RFK Jr., Donald Trump, going out there saying that Tylenol is dangerous for pregnant women and like causes autism or ADHD.
Episodes hard and fast. We talked about
the fact that, again, we are seeing measles outbreaks in Florida. Measles was a disease that we had officially eradicated in 2000. In the year 2000, it was officially eradicated. It had been more than 365 days since anybody in the United States had died from measles. And from there, and like now, you're starting to see the resurgence of these diseases that we had basically gotten rid of. Why do we see that? Because of people like RFK Jr., the leadership under Donald Trump, Mike Pence, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the rise of vaccine skepticism to outright anti-vax sentiments, and the rescheduling of necessary vaccines that are needed for herd immunity and to protect everybody. And this falling almost very neatly across partisan lines. Anti-vax sentiments used to be something that you would associate with like quacks, hippies, crunchy, granola type people, some libertarians, but mostly I saw it as like a Green Party thing. It's big for celebrities like the Gwyneth Paltrow, Goops type shit of the world. Is it Jenna McCarthy or whatever? This was something that I saw like on the fringe left, unfortunately. Now it is something that I really see as almost firmly associated with the right.
The importance of our food supply and why it needs to be healthy, should be good for you. We talked about beef tallow fries. We talked about the pharmaceutical industry, Ozempic, etc. It was a very entertaining conversation. Jennifer was fantastic. She does a lot of great work over there at the Heritage Foundation, and I'm very glad, that we took notice of her and the work she's doing, that we were able to bring her onto this show. We had a very engaging conversation that I'm excited for you all to listen to. So we will go now to Jennifer Galardi. Jennifer, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to speak with you.
So you have a very interesting story for how you've ended up, being a leader in the Maha movement. We were talking a little bit about it before we started recording, and I'm actually genuinely fascinated about how all of this happened.
A leader in the Maha movement. Like, there are no leaders in the Maha movement. There's only RFK Jr.
So tell us
and then there's a bunch of randos on TikTok that go viral being like, I like this crazy thing that RFK Jr. says. I can't think of anybody else who's like a thought leader for Maha except for RFK Jr. I don't see it going beyond him, to be honest.
Story, how did you end up
Thankfully.
there?
Short version or the long
version?
version?
No, long version. I like the long version.
Goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, in Scranton. Came out of Joe Biden territory. Scranton Joe ended up in very different positions, thank goodness. I went to school, undergrad at Washington Lee University in Virginia, a very conservative institution. Majored in public policy, and then moved to Birmingham, Alabama for my first job at a college.
Wow.
And I said, I think I've had enough of this conservative stuff. And I moved up. And
you moved to Alabama?
Well, no, after Alabama.
Remember when Ilhan Omar was like, I'm not taking Trump's vaccine? Remember Kamala Harris said that? Kamala Harris said that. Also, Joe Biden announced boosters before the FDA or the CDC had even approved them. Like, both admins have wilded out a little bit over public health shit. It's hard for me to even bring them up in the same conversation, though, because all of, like, the appointment of RFK Jr. as HHS secretary alone, like, just makes anything that any past administration did very cute in comparison. But yeah, that wasn't good.
2 years in Alabama, I'm like, I'm out. Peace out. And I packed up my car and I moved to Los Angeles, about as far away as you can possibly move. And didn't have a job, didn't have anything. And kind of, this is where there's a lot of condensation of the story material. But I was there for 20 years on and off. I lived in New York City for a stint. I lived in Austin for a stint, went back to LA. But very much got sucked into kind of progressive ideology without realizing it. And this is what I say, why it's kind of dangerous. It's a slow drip feed. And all of a sudden you've got like the future is female and Black Lives Matter on your computer stickers and everything, and I wasn't really
like indoctrinated into progressive ideology. And she's talking about, like, again, the future is sentiments like the future is female. So literally just like liberal feminism, like pop feminism platitudes. Okay. And Black Lives Matter.
Political. I had left that life from what I was studying in undergrad, but you start to take on the philosophy and the grievances and, women aren't appreciated and the language of the left without even realizing it, particularly in California. That was happening underneath the surface. My career ended up going into the fitness and health world. I was a dancer growing up, also an athlete, played tennis, but kind of got back into the dance scene in Los Angeles. There were all these classes.
Like, what does that even fucking mean? LOL, they're always so non-specific. I mean, that's intentional because they just want it to be a Rorschach test. They want you to hear, I was indoctrinated into progressive ideology, and you're, I think it's like, is it intuition pumping? Like, you're using all of this loaded language that is very abstract and scary to, like, so it can sound menacing, but absent any specificity, there's something I fail to see, like, what is there to be scared of? And then what she just, to the extent that she gives examples again, oh no, the future is female and Black Lives Matter was coming across my feed. Whoa, crazy.
It was great fitness classes. I was spending most of my evenings, I ended up working in a retail store called Fred Siegel, but after work, I would go take dance classes, Billy Blank's Taekwondo. I don't know if you remember that trend. You're too young. The older members of the audience will remember that.
I'm also a man, so.
Yeah, no, there were like all sorts of people in there. You'd be sweating it out with like the manliest of the men. And he's
really?
Yeah, it was kickboxing, but it was intense.
I'm sure my wife is going to bop me on the head for not knowing this reference at all. I'm sure she does.
I don't think it's a male or female thing. I think it's more of a generational thing that was coming up. Anyway, so I got into kind of this dance fitness world, and I started doing DVDs, on-camera workouts, and then just started working with some celebrities, prepping them. Kim Kardashian, Julianne Hough of Dancing with the Stars, worked with the Dancing with the Stars team.
Wow.
And that was my career for a good decade. I evolved it. I went back to New York to go.
This is like, she's like Timu Jillian Michaels. It's so funny to me. The thing is that she's objectively more qualified, quote unquote, to like be part of this conversation because she actually does have education, whereas Jillian doesn't. She's less of a fence sitter than Jillian, but she's somebody who has very strong opinions, very like strong convictions, but it's really hard for her to explain why she even holds them or how they're not contradictory.
To school for nutrition. Then I got down the slippery slope of yoga, meditation, kind of the
slippery slope of yoga and meditation.
Wee stuff, the crystals, essential oils. I mean, I was deep. This is definitely the short version. I kind of got into a little bit of a yoga cult, actually. So I was...
Can you explain?
Oh, geez. We eventually want to get to the Maha stuff. But yeah, it's just, again, I think people that get into these groups and these cults, they're seeking, right? And a lot of people that move to LA are definitely seeking. I was, and whatever.
Yeah, I was freed from the cult of yoga and progressivism from Facebook, things on my Facebook feed. And then, but thankfully, I found the MAGA movement, definitely not a personality cult, as well as the Maha movement, also not, like another type of personality cult, just a lot less intense surrounding RFK Jr. And then, cherry on top, Christianity, definitely not known for attracting whack jobs.
As I was seeking God, I was just kind of seeking it in the wrong places. And I kind of fell into this cult-like yoga thing where
like what is a yoga cult?
Well, there's usually a leader. It's so funny because I taught that and everyone in LA is like knows exactly what it is. I'm in such a different world right now in DC, right? Everyone's like, what? Yeah. I mean, you could say there's political cults, right? I've written an article that compares the left with a cult. Yeah. Because the behavior is the same. And
well, if she wrote an article saying that the left is like a cult, then it must be true.
Some people think those who are supportive of Trump are in a cult, that we're following the leader. I would argue that that's absolutely not true. We're a follower of ideas. He just kind of happened to be the forefront of that movement. I think.
Oh, convenient. Okay, we're a follower of ideas, and even though this man's the Make America Great Again movement has so many contradictions, I can't even keep count, as being superficially anti-interventionist, to name one. But in term 1 and term 2, again, we've got the refusal to withdraw from Afghanistan, left that to Joe Biden to do. Then we have bailouts for Argentina, very, very anti-interventionist. Striking Iran, anti-interventionist. Wanting to acquire Greenland by force, anti-interventionist. That's just to name one, okay? And we're talking about, what ideas are you talking about? This is this sort of shit that I would expect from, the the Heritage Foundation, in the sense that, I support the proud intellectual tradition of conservatism, that sort of thing. But, she has this new age kind of spin that she wants to put on it, and it just doesn't work, because you could only try to have some sort of ideological coherency with, neocon era politics, but this idea that, Donald Trump has novel ideas that people are just that people were already okay with, and they just happen to be following him. And even though they defend everything that he does, won't criticize the man, we're not in a personality cult.
Maha and the MAGA movement will last long beyond Trump, so I don't think it's a cult of one person.
Well, almost every supporter has something that they disagree with them on.
Yes, correct. Anyway, to go back, we can address that again.
Well, it can't be a cult if people have a single disagreement with the dear leader, right?
I followed one teacher around. I went to Colorado. I spent tons. I always say, if you're spending a lot of money for someone like my church now, I'm back to Christianity, praise the Lord. They don't ask of me thousands and thousands of dollars. They ask me to give.
No, I just give it voluntarily.
What I can. And to search my own heart for what that might be within my means. But I was paying thousands of dollars to this person for the trainings, and then flying out to Colorado, finding places to stay, going to India, following that,
Wow.
Yeah.
But what do you do when you get there? You just do yoga all day?
Meditation. See, people have
and here's the thing is I'm not even closed off to hearing, maybe we're in a yoga cult, bitch, I don't fucking know. But this idea that you've escaped it and not just traded it out for different cults is what's funny to me. You are still in one. If you're if you're working for the Heritage Foundation, you love Donald Trump, you're in a personality cult. You can't criticize
what
the man.
yoga is. I know we don't want to go down this road. Honestly, we can have an off. We can do maybe another episode on cults, which I'm happy to talk about because I understand the psychology of them. All that to say is, what I was practicing, I thought would bring me happiness, and it never did. I was I was one of these liberal women that always had a grievance, right? Like we were just talking about the Sydney Sweeney thing. It's like,
yeah, as opposed to the right in America, famously known for their, politics not just being completely grievance based and just, contingent upon whatever thing that they're feeling at any given moment.
We see a beautiful woman, and all we want to do is complain about it, right? And say it's fascism and Nazi propaganda.
Real.
Like, no, it's just a beautiful woman selling jeans. That's long been the tradition of advertising, right?
Why'd she refuse to condemn it in the GQ interview, lady?
Until about a decade ago.
Why is Sydney Sweeney a registered Republican? And look, do I actually think that Sydney Sweeney personally is a neo-Nazi? No, but I think she was more than happy to pander to that, fan base of hers to the extent that they were even really fans of hers.
We're back to normal. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I was one of those women that always had a grievance against men, against
Same,
racism,
true,
all these
real.
kinds of things. And I think I just got tired of being miserable.
Yeah, because that does not make you a happy person.
Like Jesse Kelly said to me in a podcast, that kind of behavior.
Like dwelling on a grievance and never trying to find a solution for it. Obviously, yeah, you're not going to feel fulfilled. That's going to lead you to be miserable. Having grievances, I don't see what the issue is with that inherently. But yeah, that's just a little. We're not going to do this whole thing. We're about to get into the debate. But yeah, that's who I was like, okay, this is who I'm debating. This ought to be fun. And then it ended up being a lot more than that. So. And to be clear, when I do these debates, I feel like I'm in the sunken place. I don't know how else to describe it. There's a very specific way that you're expected to comport yourself in these spaces to be able to get your point across. I think I did okay on the last ones, but I was really trying to be more persuasive to the audience this time. And that doesn't mean not being adversarial. I was very adversarial with this woman, but it means in a very particular way that, I'll be honest, I feel like work overtime to kind of effectuate. I don't know how else to put it, but so it will feel strange watching myself back on this one because I do think I was more natural in the other one, but I think there was a better reception to this, which is to say I got a lot less criticism, and Ian Crossland was the one who got a lot more criticism. Ian is somehow more cringy than the literal communist feminist. I love when 20-year-olds have almost no life experience, know all the secrets of the world. Adorable when when people think I'm 20 years old. Love that. Not 20. Ian, that's it. Okay, well, I don't want to get into spoilers. I love how Andrew has zero patience for Ian's drug-induced brain damage. How dumb do you have to be to say I'm a communist and I believe in personal liberty? It is so fucking stupid. Not an argument. Let's see. Not even 10 minutes into the podcast, and the commie said there hasn't been a communist society. Well, communist states actual fact about the world. Yes, correct. There's never been a communist society. Defending feminism in 2026 is wild. Ian is a deterrent, a detriment to this discussion. He is unwilling to acknowledge. His unwillingness to acknowledge the obvious is tiresome. So, when I see this, I'm like, okay. When you actually see the absence of people attacking you, and to the extent that I saw people saying the other woman was right, they were like, yeah, but she argued it poorly. I'm like, I think I did okay. Also, after the debate, worth saying, spoilers, Andrew Wilson literally, as he was taking a sip from a water bottle and laughing, said, I beat the shit out of her, and that I obviously won. And then he asked me after, he said, who trained you? like a Jedi. I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, philosophy, logic. Did you take logic classes? And I said, no, I don't have any formal. I've never taken a logic class. I said I have an undergrad in a field that's unrelated to this, but I took an intro ethics course. I took in philosophy, 1401 philosophy and stress management. That's the extent of my psychology background or philosophy roots. I've never taken any sort of logic class or whatever. Is the lighting better? No, not really. But I guess you will see. It says 100K views already. And they actually remembered to put my name in the description box. Improvements. Hello. Okay, here we go.
Welcome to the Culture War. I'm Andrew Wilson. I'm here to host this thing today. I don't know where Tim Pool is, and I forgot my beanie. Here with a great panel. We're going to be discussing feminism. So the actual prompt here is feminism bringing in communism as a resurgence, and what's the rest of the prompt? What is the rest of the prompt?
And again, I don't want to talk about communism, not because I can't defend my ideas, but I don't want to talk about it in the fucking Rumble studio with a bunch of right-wingers, and certainly not a woman who's like paid to literally argue against me. It's not fun.
Feminism is destroying America, reviving.
That's too long. Yeah, is feminism
again reviving wokeness, and feminism is destroying America. It's reviving wokeness and introducing communism. And I must point out, I cannot help but not point out that the thumbnail for this. Okay, what? Come on. I guess when it does this, you can't easily like go to the channel, but wait, there we go. Sabrina Carpenter is in the thumbnail for this. Shoot, where is it? Let me go to maybe the live. Yeah, like this is their idea of like feminism or whatever. Sabrina Carpenter, Zoran Mamdani, and Emrata. Yeah, feminist icons. Like that's the level of engagement that we're at here as far as like feminism goes.
Feminism destroying America, all that stuff. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to get into all of that. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be great. We got Straighterade here with us. We got Ian here with us. Oh God, Ian. If Ian argues with me even one time, we play Helldivers together, and I told him like there's going to be so many team kills. And then of course on this side of the table we have Jennifer. So with that, let's roll right into our first ad.
Does he smoke on set? No, he smoked outside. Oh, somebody asked me about his height. Okay. No shade to him. Maybe I have things wrong. I was wearing my Docs. My Doc Martens give me like an extra inch or two. I'm like 5'8.5", 5'9". Andrew Wilson was like my height.
It is bearskin.
Literally a pre-planned ad read. Was Rob there? No, Rob wasn't there. I didn't get to meet Rob, unfortunately.
I think it's, okay, well, that's not a good link I can say, but I'll have a link in the description below. Check it out.
And we're back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to dive into the topic. Before we do, I want to go around the table.
Yeah, everybody else's lighting looked normal. I don't know what it is. I still look white as fuck. I was the only one who looked like that.
Everybody introduce themselves, kind of tell you a little bit, just briefly about themselves, where you can find them. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Straighterade, aka Aaron. I'm live on Twitch, YouTube, doing React stream, political commentary, Monday through Friday.
And then there's an empty chair over there, but the reason for that is because Ian never brings anything to any conversation.
Better than I did last time. It's like a low bar. I still look washed out as fuck.
So I sent him to get me coffee. Over here.
I'm Jennifer Galardi. I'm a senior policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation. But for the purposes of this conversation, I was a former feminist, 20 years in California. Kind of got brainwashed and then saw the light around COVID.
Okay, like you were like, lady, I watched your fucking podcast. I did my homework. You were brainwashed into like a yoga cult. You didn't talk about and you said progressive ideology. You didn't say feminism.
Started questioning things and finally came back to being a normal woman, I'd like to say.
It's super hot. Be careful. You might want to take the lid off and let it cool down for.
Why, thank you, Ian.
Their camera washed everyone out. It's the man who did this lighting. A man clearly did this lighting. This is why it looks the way that it does.
You want to give your introduction?
Yeah, I started making YouTube videos in 2006.
They made you more white with the CNN filter.
I was like, what would Jesus do with this? I was having all these epiphanies about like saving the world, I'm like, communication. If we can communicate, we can overcome almost any issue. Almost like humanity's pretty good track record of overcoming most of our issues, even with global internet and stuff. So it's like the manifestation, 20 years later, I'm glad we're doing something like this. This is great. Let's go.
How's it working out, though? Is YouTube saving the world?
A charmed life. I could never, I mean, it could be better. I could be a billionaire throwing money at this and that, and I didn't, AI is another issue, in the mechanization.
You could be a billionaire, but alas.
Of the universes could be like the dehumanization and the roboticization could be a problem, but, I don't know. I'm not a Luddite, but I think it's
how many drugs, Ian?
It's the best time to ever live as a human. Is that even debatable?
But a lot of drugs?
A little bit of drugs.
Okay.
Everybody's saying coked out. He just comes off like a stoner to me.
On caffeine right now.
So, Aaron, you're a communist.
I'm a communist, yeah.
Okay. Dive into that a little bit.
No one wants to dive into this.
All for the stateless, classless, moneyless society, promote social equality. But I do think that politics is more than just what we say we are. I feel that's like an ideological tenet of mine that's kind of in my brain. But as far as like the actual change that I effectuate in the world, it's pretty unexceptional and boring. I'm not out here organizing general strikes and tenants and trying to get like a tenants union or anything like that. For the most part, I advocate people engage in electoral politics, local politics at, the municipal, state, federal level, I generally align with Democrats on most things. On some, I'll be like an independent or whatever.
I should have said more than Republicans because it makes it sound like I'm in like total agreement with the Democrats. That's absolutely not true. I should have said I agree with them more than Republicans.
But I realize I'm further left than the majority of Americans. But as far as like what I can achieve now or whatever, it's like, you know,
But you're promoting,
I'm pushing for like a utopia here.
Yeah, you're promoting it as an ideology, though, you would say.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're pretty unabashed, unashamed about.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And I would say that a lot of people that identify themselves as socialists
made the Democrats. I know. I made them sound like far leftists. But you should do those things. LOL. I'm saying that people should do those things, but I'm not going to pretend like I'm out here doing them.
Are communists, but because communism is like a dirty word in America due to the Red Scare, people generally in America not being so far left or whatever, they say socialist, but these are used largely like interchangeably.
Well, how do we distinguish between what's a socialist and what's a communist?
I think it really comes down, honestly, to self-identification. As far as most socialists are more
as far as
interested
ideology.
In, like, as far as ideology, they're more interested in preserving, you know, some state apparatuses, have more, I think, priority over the sort of short term, but there's not really a major distinction between them.
Okay, gotcha.
Which is why if socialists call themselves communist and communists call themselves socialist, I don't really think that's...
So part of the prompt is feminism reviving wokeness, and is it reviving communism? Would you say that, would you self-identify as a feminist?
Yeah.
Okay. And then
this is a cute look. When I do these, I actually try to look a little bit more professional, I would say.
Think that it's bringing back communism?
No. But I don't think there's ever been communism, unless you can think of a communist society.
Saying whatever, too much, TBH. One, if you watch me speak, you'll notice that I have exceedingly low verbal graffiti, which is ums, uhs, oohs, those sorts of things. I was intentionally signaling my disinterest in talking about communism because they did not tell me about that topic in advance. I wanted to get off the topic as quickly as possible. It is boring. No one cares. They're not interested in hearing out these things, and this is not the audience for that.
Well, is it moving us towards that or helping
Yes.
to move us towards that? Okay, ideologically. Okay, so that's not in dispute. And then,
like, if they wanted to talk about communism, they needed to tell me in advance we were going to talk about communism, that they wanted me to talk about it, and I would have said no thank you. Unless I could, like, unless the interlocutor was someone that was not these people.
do you think it's reviving?
If you want to bring on, like, again, if we're going to talk about that, like, get me Yaron Brooks from the fucking, like, Ayn Rand Institute. Fine. I will debate communism with that type of paid corporate stooge. I'm not going to do it with the woman who's like, Maha. It doesn't make any sense. She's not even equipped. She's barely equipped to have this conversation. She wasn't going to be equipped to debate communism versus capitalism. All the argument, if we had gotten into that, I can shortcut for you. Communism has never worked. It's not practical. Human nature, bro. People, dog eat dog, natural selection, social Darwinism. That's why we can't have nice things. Here are all the problems with communism. We'll go on to describe issues with capitalism and attribute it all to communism. Every single flaw that I will point out with capitalism, they will say that's unrelated to capitalism, and that's because we have crony capitalism. There you go. That's what that debate would have looked like.
Wokeness.
No, but what do you mean by wokeness?
Well, I'm asking you from your metric. Whatever you think wokeness is.
Like, why are they asking me again? They never told me that the topic was going to be about wokeness, so I'm not making an affirmative claim about wokeness, what wokeness is or is not, or if we ought to be promoting it. So I'm being asked for a definition of a thing I'm not interested. I've never said I'm a proponent of, and yet I'm being asked to define it.
I mean, generally speaking, like,
am I partnered? No, I need this one more stream, then I can apply to be a partner finally.
Wokeness is kind of this catch-all term that I feel like people just play fast and loose with. Sometimes they mean kind of the excesses of social justice. Other times it means kind of literally any promotion of social equality.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably closer to my understanding of it, or what constitutes like woke ideas. And in that sense, yeah, feminism is moving us closer towards a more woke society.
Okay, I feel like we understand the ideology a little bit. And then over here, let's dive into the same questions, exact same ones. Okay. First, feminism. Do you identify as a feminist?
No.
Okay. And then, is feminism assisting with the revival of communism or moving us towards that ideologically?
Yes, the communists use feminism as a tool to further communism. So the first International Day of Women was founded and formulated by communists.
And then is it reviving wokeness?
And Joe Brandon did the Trans Day of Visibility on our Lord's Day Easter. In my research on her, I actually heard her repeating that lie. This idea that like Trans Day of Visibility was specifically done on Easter last year or whatever it is, when it's always on that day or something, just happens to be on the same day as Easter, which is always changing because it's like based on the lunar cycle or something.
I didn't ever see wokeness really die. I saw maybe a kind of moving away from it in the past, 3-4 years, but I don't think it's dead. I think it's alive and well.
So since wokeness is such a nebulous term, and both of you have kind of agreed that that's a nebulous term, let's leave that off of the table for the purpose of the debate, and we'll focus on whether or not feminism
Yay, lovely. I was like, can we not debate the wokeness shit?
is destroying America.
It is literally just a buzzword. It's a useless conversation.
And
Unless you
whether or
want to have
not-
a semantic argument.
It's moving us towards communism, and if that's a good thing, you think it is, you think it isn't. So with that, I'll open the floor here a little bit so we can get kind of back and forth into this debate. So it's a pro side for feminists. You can go ahead and open.
Pro side, I see a lot more upsides than downsides to the promotion of the social equality, economic equality of women alongside men. I largely think that this promotes, better social attitudes and relationships between genders, the sexes, however you want to, whichever lines you want to divide it amongst. I see more participation in the economy as a net good, but overall, I also really care about, and I think most feminists care about personal liberty, personal freedom, and the primary thing I'm always concerned about is people just being able to have the ability to kind of make the choices in their life that they feel comfortable with. If that means embracing motherhood, the family, being a stay-at-home mom, that's great. If that means working and raising a...
Watch this caveat being like, I am totally fine with people choosing to be stay-at-home moms if they want to dedicate their lives to domesticity and rearing a family. Totally okay. Okay. And they will go on to ignore, pretend like Jennifer is going to go on to ignore that I said that and be like, you don't really believe that though. That's not true though.
Family simultaneously, that's fine if that means solely working and you're not interested.
Why no glasses? Because my glare looked horrible last time because of the bright ass lights that they have, and so I just decided to be blind. X-Director for you to CX, thank you so much for subscribing with Prime. You've been subscribed for 2 months and you're on a 1-month streak. Thank you so much.
Kids, I think all of these things are fine. It just I just want women specifically, to largely be able to be in charge of the decisions that dictate their life.
I promise I'll let you get into it. Before you do, you might have a little opening that you want to give there too, kind of in response.
Well, I think the opening is kind of pushing back on all those points, because feminism never was about, well, we're okay with you doing what you do and you do. It was very antagonistic towards women who wanted to stay in the home, especially if we want to call it second wave, sexual liberty, whatever it was. It was, you're a slave. It's enslavement, the drudgery of motherhood. It was constantly framed as you are trapped by motherhood. Motherhood is a trap. So to say that feminism promotes, it's just you do what you do.
Again, I'm about to bring this up, but this is a very reductive view of feminism, because it ignores that the first wave feminism was literally suffrage, trying to get political equality, voting rights, etc. Second wave feminism is more along the lines of what she's saying. It was more antagonistic to women being stayed in the home, being relegated to the homes, but it's they're acting like that intellectual tradition of feminism is carried forward in third and fourth wave, when it's absolutely not. Second wave feminists are far more likely to be TERFs, far more likely to believe in biological essentialism. That obviously comes in contradiction with feminists of today that are trans inclusive, sex work inclusive. In the past, you had feminist groups allying with conservative religious groups to oppose things like pornography, and work towards, in some ways, significantly socially conservative goals because they believe they were oppressive to women.
But that's a good choice. That's a good choice. That's not. It did value women's independence over other choices, and it saw children as burdens, which then gave rise to more abortions. And it really wanted to, I think, make women a superior sex to men. It triumphed independence over everything else, over codependence, over roles. So
over codependence over roles? What do you mean?
I don't think that that's true, that feminism is all about just choice. Then I think you also have to define what freedom is.
Well, the first thing we should do is make sure we get both of your definitions of feminism so that we're not speaking past each other, right? So starting with you, how would you kind of define it? Now, I understand you're not going to be able to give me an Oxford definition, and I'm not asking you to.
We can go off the Oxford definition. It literally doesn't matter to me.
Just even a proprietary one, so we understand where you're coming from the worldview.
I would say the promotion of social equality between men, women, sexes, genders on economic grounds as well, and prioritizing liberty, independence for women. Within that, obviously, I think it's not really, the characterization you just gave of what you understand to be feminism. There, I find a lot of people that push back against feminists or like feminist goals, feminist.
I started to like argue on the merits already because this woman, when giving her opening statement, she already started to disagree with me, and he didn't stop her, and he's about to stop me for just starting to engage. He's like, well, hold on, we're defining terms.
Aims kind of have this caricature of what they believe the goals of feminism are, which is supremacy to men, supremacy over men rather than equality. And I think to the extent that you can make that argument, the promotion of social equality between the sexes might,
but
in
hang
fact,
on. Let's just start with kind of a summarized definition that we can work from.
But just generally, promotion of social inequality.
Okay.
But again, I was doing a lot of yapping. If he just really wanted my he could have cut me off a lot sooner if he wasn't going to let me continue.
Supremacy over other genders or men.
To me, I mean, that's fine. We can even look up. I mean, if we want to look up what the dictionary.
Yeah, it was earlier today. It was this morning.
Fine putting up the dictionary definition.
But,
you don't have to use a proprietary one, but just.
But it doesn't. The thing is it doesn't matter. It's how has it played out, right? The definitions at some point don't matter. The technical definitions with a movement, right? It is what people think.
I don't even disagree. Like, honestly, again, wholly uninterested in semantic debates. I would rather just get into the substance, and I don't think that we are really going to be debating the merits of feminism as an ideology. We're going to be like talking about discrete issues that she is going to make. Like, this is how feminism debates go. They have broad complaints about society, and then they scapegoat feminism. And we could just engage on those discrete complaints. And the only thing I'm going to say is, yeah, that's really bad. Doesn't mean that feminism's to blame for it. Or you've not demonstrated if that's the case.
I think it is. And it is what the consequences to society has been. And the consequences have been taking women out of the homes, trying to, it's weird because feminism says it's for women, but what it's resulted in is women becoming more like men. And almost regarding men as the superior.
Has anyone like her ever argued in good faith? When you work for the Heritage Foundation, no.
Sex. That's how it's played
very
out.
Very quickly, maybe we can summarize this easily then. The official definition here, the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of equality in sexes, I think that's up for dispute. I would just add that it's a movement towards egalitarianism, right? And the attempt to deconstruct the patriarchy. Would you agree that that's about right in summarization?
I think that's important. The deconstruction of the patriarchy.
So now we've established kind of something that we can both work off of here for the purpose of the debate. I'm sorry we had caveat this a little bit, but I want to get to the heart of the issue, or we'll never be able to debate it.
And even to segment this into four more complex things, is there's four waves of feminism up to this point, and they're all different, and they use the same word, feminism, but they have a different definition in every era that you see it. Like the women's right to vote was a big part of the
thing
second
is,
wave,
though, is that she just said the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of equality. And
again, Ian actually not making an incorrect point. It was exactly what I was thinking as she was talking about it. Like, yeah, it's really not. I'm not going to say it's ideologically incoherent, but there is ideological diversity within the feminist movement. If you think that feminists all agree with one another, and that, Germaine Greer, Julie Bindel are going to be driving with the feminists of today. Yeah, they don't.
Deconstruction of patriarchy, she agrees.
You want to
they're
stick with that for now?
Well, they're operating off of this worldview regardless of the wave. And so if that's going to help us get to the heart of the matter, then let's use that to get to the heart of the matter. And I'm going to kind of open the floor here a little bit for you.
The other thing is that what we consider first wave in America, feminism, which wasn't really the first wave because it goes back further than that. But in America, the first wave, the suffrage movement, the right for women not to be defined as property, they didn't identify as feminists. They didn't call themselves feminists. Now, I can argue that I didn't even believe that their understanding of taking over the patriarchy was correct. However, that term came to them retroactively. So that's one thing.
Yeah. You did say something earlier, like Andrew was saying, just like broadly, we've agreed upon this definition for the purposes of the debate.
And I didn't get to bring this up, but this is the attitude that she just talked about is still true to this day. Again, this is quant shit, data mail. I don't want to get too like, the data says this or whatever. I've tried going that way in debates. I just don't find it persuasive. Power Slice Pizza, thank you so much for subscribing with your Prime sub. I really appreciate it. But yeah, people find ways to like cherry pick and say like, here's why that data is not valid and just hand wave it. I don't want that to happen. So this is Pew, July 14, 2020. Most Americans support gender equality, even if they don't identify as feminists. So when asked if they agree or disagree with the statement, it is very important for women to have equal rights with men. So 89% of feminists say yes, non-feminists 69%, all adults 79%. Favored the ERA, which is the Equal Rights Amendment, being added to the U.S. Constitution. Non-feminists, 70%. Feminists, 86%. All adults, 78%. people not seeing discrimination against women where it really does exist is the bigger problem. 53% of non-feminists agree, 81% of feminists agree, 67% of adults agree. Our country has not gone far enough when it comes to giving women equal rights with men. This is the one that's going to be the worst. 39% agree with this. Feminists, non-feminists agree. Feminists, 74%. All adults, 57%. So, yeah, many of the values of the feminist movement have been accepted across the political spectrum in the U.S., even among Americans who don't personally identify as feminists, according to a Pew Research Center survey about gender equality that comes 100 years after the ratification of the 19th Amendment. For example, a majority of Dems and Republicans, whether they identify as feminists or not, say it is very important for women to have equal rights with men. Similarly, majorities in both partisan coalitions support adding the Equal Rights Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The survey comes as scholars and commentators debate the impact of feminism on women's rights and broader American culture. Some argue that feminism has become universal and that the values and principles of women's equality and empowerment have already been adopted to a large extent by society, no longer requiring the identification with the label of feminist. Obviously, I disagree with this. This is definitely not the case. We're talking about, again, Roe v. Wade was overturned. Women don't even have entire control. Like, we are right now, women are entering a period in American history where we could have less rights and bodily autonomy than our mothers and grandmothers did, as far as being able to assert the choices that we want to make over our own bodies and our own lives, which is stunning to say. So this idea, again, there is backsliding going on with respect to women's rights. There is the attempt to mainstream repealing the 19th Amendment, which I got into very quickly with her. Not entering, we're there. Yeah, we are there, So this idea feminism, thing of the past, we don't need it. Not true. But broadly, people are not antagonistic to these ideas nominally. Now, if you get and ask into all of those people and ask them okay, what are your solutions and proposals for how you achieve equality between men and women? That's where you're going to find the disagreement. But broadly speaking, you don't have hostility to it in the way that you used to.
As Ian mentioned, there have been different iterations of, first wave feminism.
Is there abortion restrictions where you are, Aaron? You mean in Florida? In the state of Florida, is there abortion restrictions?
Which is primarily what you talked about, women's suffrage, political representation via voting. And then you had second wave feminism, and that is where you actually did see more attitudes where feminists were speaking out against women being confined to the family. You have feminists like Betty Friedan who talked about, the problem that has no name, and how
was a communist,
suburbia and these sorts of things. And, while they may promise a kind of dream life for women where they have the nuclear family, they're raising their kids, they're supported by a husband, these don't actually fulfill or live up to what they promise, and they leave women feeling alienated, depressed, etc. And then you have, third and fourth wave feminism that are more often than not coming in contradiction now with.
Florida's in a great spot. I don't know how restrictive. We have abortion bans and heartbeat bills. So if you want to procure an abortion, I think you have to get an ultrasound beforehand. It is mandated. I don't know if this is the type of state where they require them to say that if you get an abortion, you're at risk, you have an increased risk for breast cancer, which is not true. And doctors are at least free to say right after that. There's no evidence to back that statement up. I just have to say it because the law makes me say it. You can't abort any fetus where they detect a heartbeat. You also, I think we have, a 6-week abortion ban.
With second wave feminism, as they're more interested in expanding equality for women beyond the basis of sex solely.
But you would agree they're all moving towards the same goal,
but
right?
They're all broadly moving in the same goal. But there are a few times where you do see differences, like second wave feminists more likely to identify as TERFs, the Andrew Dworkin and whatnot,
because they see how they protect women in a different way from their view. But they're still attempting to deconstruct the patriarchy on behalf of egalitarianism, right?
Yeah, correct.
You would agree that each wave has this in common.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we can consolidate that a bit. Go ahead.
So you said that the promise of marriage, family wasn't fulfilled. Women at home weren't fulfilled. I would say the opposite now.
I said that those feminists in second wave, like Betty Friedan, argue that.
So how's that working out for us now? Because
that wasn't my argument. This lady was not listening. I never said that was my argument.
Promises that those women made.
I don't even disagree with it. And there was probably more of a social necessity for feminists at this time to be more antagonistic to the idea of women being relegated to the home. But at this point, I don't think so.
That you'll be happier when you're independent. You'll be happier when you can work like a man, when you can make money like a man, when you can have consumer purchasing power like a man. It doesn't seem to be working out so well. There are upwards of 60% of women on SSRIs. We see this war.
I never even got to get into this. I don't think so anyway. Like, lady, you don't get to just throw that out and say that feminism is to answer for it. The reason why we have more instances of women on SSRIs, on antidepressants, etc., is, for one, there is more research and more self-reporting of, and we have more knowledge of mental health afflictions now than we did in the fucking 50s, where women were addicted to benzos and quietly depressed in their homes and taking care of their kids all day. Okay, that's one. For two, the reason why we also see more instances of women, especially higher educated women, taking SSRIs is not because you have lower prevalency of mental health afflictions with lower class women, and I mean like economic class, right? It is because we have expanded access to healthcare. You would expect that. You would expect in a society that has expanded access to healthcare, where people are generally more informed about mental health issues, where people have the ability to opt for medical intervention and these sorts of, there's like less stigma surrounding these things. There's still as a big stigma, but it's decreased significantly. You would expect there to be higher rates of these things being treated. It doesn't mean that they didn't exist at the times that they're talking about.
Between the sexes, men and women are not dating. They're not reproducing. They're not happy. They're miserable. Look at the women out in Minnesota right now. I've never seen angrier women in my life. They have no direction. They have no purpose.
And they're fat.
And we can make an argument that there is an anger. There is an inherent anger at the way God has made women.
They kept showing this freeze frame of Ian when they were cutting to his camera.
They're rebelling against what women would see as God.
And like, again, the weight comments or whatever, it's just like cheap gotchas to just rage bait. I didn't even touch it. There's literally no point. But I did want to say, you're complaining about that. Meanwhile, our own military is having to lower standards because men are too obese and they're trying to up recruitment for the U.S. military. So all of the fear mongering that they do surrounding, women being in the fucking armed services, they got to lower the standards so women can be in these fucking DEI participants in our fucking military. They can't be Navy SEALs, blah, blah, blah. They are literally doing that thing, but for men. They're lowering the standards to get more men.
The patriarch. They are rebelling against their own form and function, their wombs, their innate design. You can call it God. You can call it natural law, whatever you want to call it. There's just this anger for themselves at who they are and what they were made to do.
I think I would agree with you that the social ills and issues that you're talking about with increased loneliness that pertains to women and men alike, economic anxiety, people not feeling like they have the ability to start a family, etc. I don't disagree with you that all of these problems persist throughout society. I think I just disagree with you that it's the result of feminism, largely to the extent, or like when you talked about there being higher instances of use for women like with SSRIs. Like, what do you believe is the reason for that? Do you really think it's just feminism?
I think it's a big part of it. I think it's they believe the lie that.
And I wanted to be like, you can't like jump on these people immediately. But when she was like, it's primarily feminism, I'm like, well, what else would it be? I guess she was going to say big pharma.
Independence is the primary virtue for women. I think that, men and women are meant to be complementary. They're meant to support each other's strengths. I don't think men and women are equal. I think they're equal under the law. I don't think they're equal under natural order. And I'll play devil's advocate. I've been in a hospital with my mother the past week, and I have to say the women doctors, I enjoyed them more because they
I should have told her I'm sorry to hear that her mom was in the hospital.
So offended when I asked them questions. I know enough about the medical field to be dangerous. And when I would ask them questions, it was like their ego wasn't bruised.
Natural order, what kind of Nazi shit is this? It's honestly, this is what happened. It's like kid who fell asleep in class and gets called on. It's not, I don't even think it's that deep, honestly. Like, she is repeating, biological essentialist, like pseudoscientific points to back up her arguments. But I think it really is the result of lazy thinking and argumentation more so than it's indicative of any sort of like mask on Nazi ideology.
Right. So I like their bedside manner more. So there's certain careers that I think women and men can both excel in. But when it comes to a surgeon, I don't care what his bedside manner is. If he's working on my mother, I want him. And what I don't want is unfair. They're being hired based on their sexual characteristics, right? Not on their merit, right? So anyway, I kind of went down.
I should have asked her, can you name a single instance anywhere in the United States that you know of a hospital that has hired a female physician on the basis of a DEI, okay, a diversity quota, or that was an unqualified candidate, and nonetheless gave her the position because she's a woman? She wouldn't be able to give me an answer. She wouldn't even be able to name a malpractice lawsuit where that was the case.
Veered off a little bit with that, but all that to say is, like, I'm not saying women can't work. What I'm saying is the second wave feminists, what they promised has not come to fruition. Just like you said, what the family promised. And I would say the family, the main cause of women being kind of
and again, she's not wrong. The promises of the second wave feminism haven't come to fruition, like the ERA, because a lot of second wave feminists like Gloria Steinem did, and Betty Friedan also pushed for the Equal Rights Amendment. Joe Biden is still pushing for the Equal Rights Amendment, like right before he's leaving office. Why he was waiting till the last second to talk about that, I'm sure. I don't know. But yeah, like I won't disagree with her that like these promises have never been fulfilled, but she's saying this is indicative of the internal contradictions of feminism collapsing in on themselves. This is why it's never been realized, not only because the ideas don't hold up to scrutiny, but because they're not popular. People don't want this. It makes women unhappy, etc. Like it rejects itself effectively. But no, to the extent that these the promises of second wave feminism or any feminist movement have not come to fruition, it is not because of it is because of opposition to these social movements.
Press needing mother's little helper, right, in the 50s and the 60s was because it was the industrial era. Everything used to be centered around the home. The whole economy that we used to have with agrarian culture was almost like communist. It was sharing.
It was communitarian.
It was communitarian, right? And so when the Industrial Revolution took the men out of the home, I understand why women felt burdened. They lost their partner.
It's so funny how she's like, it was the Great Depression was basically like communism.
Lost their mate. So we're going to have to shift. Like I'm not saying there can't be changes to how the family functions.
Stop transvestigating this woman. I'm not saying that cheekily stop doing it or I'm going to time you out. It's annoying me.
That we need to go back to the agrarian. We're not going back there. But I don't think you can deny the fact that a family unit, a mother and a father in a loving relationship with children is the best to build a society.
I do think that the most important thing is that children feel supported. And right now, given the current economic order, dual income households are necessary for people to be able to adequately support all children that they have. But returning to a claim that you made earlier, you said you don't believe that men and women are equal, right?
Not by design.
Not by design. But you did say equal.
Like again, we live in an economy that demands participation from both parents if you want to maximize outcomes for your kids. That's just the reality of it.
The law. Mm-hmm. Do you support repealing the 19th Amendment? Do you think that women ought to be able to vote?
I think that can be up for debate about the pros and cons of it. The fact of the matter, again, it's definitions. It's never going to happen. It's not politically viable.
Hang on.
Again, why can't it happen? This is not, speaking of natural law, everything that's going on around us right now, the Constitution is not something that we discovered. All of these are man-made tenets and political structures, institutions, the results of choices that can be made. We can see backsliding really quick when it comes to women's rights and this idea that the 19th Amendment could never be repealed. And, oh, that's unrealistic. That's not fucking true. I wish that were fucking true. That ain't fucking true. And I'm asking you if you think it ought to be that way.
I know it's up for debate, but that's what we're here. We're debating.
Right. But I also don't want to get off. I don't want to go down into the weeds into this. It's not going to happen.
It's not
politically viable.
I don't think it's the weeds to ask the question. It's a fair question to ask. Repeal the 19th or no?
And here's the great thing about this. Sorry, definitely am weaponizing Tim Pool's misogynistic audience against her right now. But you have one of two options if you are this lady. You can either be a total cuck, like Pearl Davis. You have to be a total pick-me and say, if you want to be based to these people, you have to say openly and proudly, repeal the 19th Amendment, take away my rights. You have to go out there and say those things. The other thing, though, is that she works for the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation, even with all of the extreme plans that it has in Project 2025, now 2026, even they don't have that included in the platform just yet. They've made room for Nick Fuentes. president of the Heritage Foundation, has come out and said that we can debate ideas with Nick Fuentes, but they have not gone so far as to endorse the repealing of the 19th Amendment, thankfully. So she can't hold that position. She doesn't want to personally hold that position. So it's really lose-lose, because do you want to sound like a cuck and potentially risk, losing your job? Because I don't know that the Heritage Foundation wants their Maha thought leaders going around advocating for extreme things like that. You think that Media Matters doesn't pick up on shit like this? They will report stuff like that, and they could fire her, for one. And for two, so you could trade, again, job security for a little bit of clout and in with Tim Pool's audience, which would be fucking stupid. Or again, you could say, no, like, even though I just said men are superior to women, I don't think that I still think they should be able to vote. Why?
I can see benefits from it. Yes.
So
yes, you support it?
I haven't, to be honest. I would need to think about it more, because I don't give...
You haven't thought about whether women ought to be able to vote?
Yeah, no, I've thought about that, but I can see the pros and cons of both. I do think that, as a single woman with no children, married couples, men and women, have more skin in the game about what happens to this country when you have something to pass down. I would say I'd like to...
And okay, men and women have more skin in the game. Is this an argument for it or against it? That could go either way.
See things, but it's not as... It's not as visceral for me. I don't have children. So what happens to this country after
this is so pathetic, man. This idea that, like, again, how many times do you have to punch yourself in the fucking face during this debate? I don't have kids. I'm fucking worthless. Like, dude, it's so lame. It's so cringe. It's so disgusting to watch women behave like this. But oh my God, it's why she has the job that she does. Holy shit, lady, you're not worth less than other women. As funny as it would be to pretend to hold that position just to bully her, I can't bring myself to do it. It's absolutely horrible to fucking think of yourself as less worthy political representation because you didn't have a fucking kid.
Gone, I can say, yes, I care, but I'm not passing anything down. My kitty's not going to
She herself is childless and single. She is childless, but she says she's married later.
After I'm gone, I can say, yes, I care, but I'm not passing anything down. My kitty's not going to outlive me.
When she said my kitty's not going to outlive me, I thought she was talking about another kitty down there. I was like, I didn't know what she was saying, and then she meant her literal cat. She's literally a cat lady, is what she's saying.
I love that cat to death, but the truth is, so I can.
And by this point, she hasn't made the disclaimer that she's married, so she literally is saying, like, even though she just said feminists are like angry, men-hating women with grievances that have been sold to them by liberal women who tell them lies, who say don't have kids, reject the nuclear family, etc. She is, again, a career woman herself, doesn't have kids, has a fucking cat, literally like a cat lady, was for the majority of her life feminist in a cult, so she says, right? And now she's turned around and pivoted to say to all of these women, no, don't do any of that. That definitely, it won't make you happy to be where I am. Don't be like me. I'm a fucking loser or whatever. Like, it's not virtuous how I've led my life.
Why that only married couples with children should vote. Now, assuming they are looking after the best for the whole country because of they want to see this country thrive. I want to see it thrive too, but I don't have skin in the game as much. Let's say I don't have as much skin in the game as parents. So I can make the argument. Would I really want it to happen?
How is it that so many childless women devote their lives to telling other women to pump out kids nonstop? You answered your own question. They don't have kids, so they have more time to be doing that shit.
And probably not, but I can understand. So I can make the argument. Would I really want it to happen? Probably not, but I can
make the argument. Again, nothing statement.
Understand the argument.
So why wouldn't you want it to happen?
Because selfishly, I like having a say in what happens. But I was out in California completely apolitical. Well, not apolitical. I kind of got...
Yeah, it's really selfish when women want to be able to vote. Who the fuck do we think we are, right?
Brainwashed and tugged along. But I didn't vote for years. Nothing changed.
Do you vote now?
Life.
Okay, just because you weren't voting does not mean things weren't fucking changing. You just didn't notice.
Huh?
Do you vote now?
Yeah.
And who did you vote for in the most recent election?
Trump.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's unclear to me why you would view that as selfish when I think the principle being, no taxation without representation is generally defensible. And I don't see that as any more, particularly self-interested or selfish. I do think it's reasonable for participants in a society, regardless of their sex, gender, etc., to want to be able to vote and have representation within, representative or constitutional republic, representative democracy, etc., within the United States.
But I can say a lot of
you
the policies...
You wouldn't push for it, right? Not only because you think it's unrealistic, but I think that you also seem to believe that it would be more unjust than just to push to repeal the 19th Amendment.
I just don't see the policies that would come down from from institutions of which I voted for, and they actually don't change my life a lot. I mean, maybe taxes.
Policy doesn't change life? Then why are you a senior policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation? What the fuck are you talking about, lady? Policy is the thing that changes people's lives. It makes a big difference to a lot of people. I think the big, beautiful bill kicking all of these fucking Americans off of Medicare, transferring a bunch of money to the 1%, that's going to make a great deal difference to a great many fucking people, including you, even if you're going to pretend otherwise.
But like, let's say for like medical care, I don't know. I've always kind of lived outside the system. So
it's like you don't get to exclude yourself from democracy. Are you living out on the fucking grid? Is this Into the Wild? No. Okay, then you're not living outside of the society. Okay, you have not, even before you worked at the Heritage Foundation, lady, you worked in LA and you did fitness tapes with Kim Kardashian. You didn't live outside the system. You were literally part of a mainstream aspect of pop culture.
Personally, I don't think it would really matter to me. But again,
it wouldn't matter to you if you have the right to vote or if the 19th Amendment were repealed?
I don't think it would change how I lived my life one way or the other.
It immediately changes the argument. It wouldn't really matter to me if I couldn't vote anymore, even though I selfishly want to be able to do it, but also it wouldn't really matter to me. But it wouldn't change my life one way or the other. Then why not push for it if it doesn't make any difference? It would change your life significantly, and I do think that you believe it's important to be able to vote because you participated in our last political election.
I did.
And since you don't believe that, if you believe that women's role should primarily be relegated to the home, what are your thoughts on the Trump administration having an unprecedented amount of women in power?
I didn't say...
both the first and second term. Like the first term, he appointed Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. That nomination went through.
So Trump's not a sexist?
I hated that he was interjecting here. I was literally about to fucking lay out a fucking banger of the fact that, again, Tulsi Gabbard, national security... intelligence secretary, she's in charge of national security. Susie Wiles, chief of staff. Karoline Leavitt, press secretary. Pam Bondi, attorney general. Kristi Noem, in charge of DHS. And that's not even getting into the fact that Trump's admin is really fucking gay. I literally mean that. Trump has an unprecedented amount of gay Republicans in his administration.
Misogynist?
No, I didn't go that far. Okay, and this is also really stupid, and I didn't think to do it until later in the debate, and it was like, it would have been obvious that I'm going back for a gotcha, but I was like, fuck, why didn't I draw this? Let me be really, really clear. Proximity to any minority demographic does not mean jack shit about that person. That's like saying, how can I be racist when I have a bunch of black indentured servants? How can I be racist when I hire black people? That doesn't mean you're not racist. There's not a contradiction there. You can do that and still also be personally racist. It's not a contradiction whatsoever. The same goes for women. The Trump admin is also self-selecting for women that actively work against women's rights, for one. For two, the other thing that's annoying about this stupid gotcha or whatever is you realize it. They posted this clip on Twitter of me saying this, for one, even though I didn't say that he's not sexist because of this. But all the replies were like, yeah, that's a shortcoming of Trump. How come he's not more sexist? The dude who's asking Caitlin Collins, the CNN reporter, why doesn't she smile more, and is randomly telling women, female reporters, quiet piggy, because they're asking him questions that he doesn't fucking like. Yeah. Are we really surprised? Is this guy a misogynist? Gee, I really, really wonder.
So he's a sexist misogynist who puts women in power?
No, I don't think those are mutually exclusive. Do you?
Yeah, well, I don't see a lot of misogynists who are sexist putting women in power. No.
But so you think it's mutually exclusive?
Can you name for me the most sexist misogynist?
And now he's the one who's being weaselly. So he said no at the end of that, but I didn't think he was really truly addressing my question.
This person you can think of who's like, I love having women in power.
Can you tell me if you believe it's mutually exclusive?
Answer the question
first?
Before you ask one.
I asked the question first, and you never answered mine. I said, do you believe that it's mutually exclusive?
I asked the question first, and the question was, do you see a lot of misogynist sexists putting women in power or not?
And I asked my clarifying question first to get an understanding. And also, I didn't actually think he was real. It was I thought it was a rhetorical question. I didn't actually think he was asking me for my opinion on that. Where are you coming from?
Hang on. I'm sorry. I'm so confused. Which part of this are you not understanding? Do you see a lot of misogynist, sexist, putting women in power or not? Anything in there you need to find? Hang on.
Yeah, I also don't really use the term like misogyny. Like, I don't essentialize these things. So unless you're like Charlie Kirk levels of racist, I usually find it more productive to call attention to discrete instances of racism before I will go on to say somebody's like a racist. Okay. David Duke is a racist, right? But most people that when they're being racist, either they do it in unexceptional ways, microaggressions, whatnot. Then you have the Charlie Kirk types that are overtly racist, or Ben Shapiro, his attitudes towards Palestinians, for example. But still, it is a lot easier to communicate and call out and draw attention to racism and say, like, criticize individual actions than it is to say, oh, that person's a misogynist when you're in these particular spaces, because every single thing, the threshold for them is literally in heaven, okay? For what rises to the level of racism or sexism. And they will always, even if you can find examples that they're willing to grant, they will bring up all these other things that they say mitigate that. So I don't really like to try to make the argument somebody is a misogynist, somebody is like again, to me, the most consequential ways to describe that, like, Trump is misogynistic, not even getting into the comments that I just said about, like, you know, quiet piggy and asking Caitlin Collins why doesn't she smile more. The fact that he was appointing anti-choice judges to the Supreme Court so that Roe v. Wade could be overturned and women could lose access to control over their bodies, be forced to give birth, lose access to reproductive care, and abortions, etc. Like, that is promoting misogyny in the world. But to these people, they don't see that as like promoting misogyny.
Anything in there you need to find, I'll define for you.
I like to answer your question.
Okay,
yes, I do
where?
See that. The Bush administration, his Secretary of State was Condoleezza Rice. I don't think that George Bush would identify himself neither as a feminist nor somebody who
did
really
George Bush put a lot of women in power?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't think that he had quite the amount of appointees, of female appointees, and women within his cabinet.
So we just generally look around at like corporate.
Because again, he's saying, like, can you think of misogynistic men that put women in positions of power? And now this is like getting difficult because I'm trying to think of people, not only that his audience will know, it's not enough if I could name a random person that they're not going to know or something like that, but men in positions of power. So how many public facing CEOs are there that are notable for having like promoted women or something like that? I'm sure they exist, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. So I was trying to go back to past admins to try to make this point.
That put women as boss CEOs and things like this and go, those fucking misogynists? Or does that usually mean something different? Like, for instance, do you think that maybe that would mean...
It's already a straw man because I never said that misogyny is when you don't promote women. Like, or when you don't... again, like, this is like literally... this is like corporate feminism. This idea that, like, the more women there are in the boardroom, the better that equals, women's liberation and improvement instead of just... a career attainment for that individual woman. Like, the issue is not that we don't have enough female billionaires, we don't have enough female drone pilots. Like, this is not what feminists are talking, at least serious feminists are talking about as far as achieving women's liberation. They actually do not see the inclusion of women in these spaces as something that is going to be like largely net positive for women. Really, it's kind of just a thermometer or like a barometer for you to see like where attitudes about women are in a society, but they're not revolutionary in and of themselves. And this is, I also couldn't get into this type of argument, but yeah, wow. Trump putting women in positions of power so he can push them off the glass cliff when necessary. That 100% applies to Pam Bondi and 100% applies to Kristi Noem. Wow. So feminist of him.
Or give evidence towards they're not actually misogynistic, sexist. Wouldn't that be better evidence for that?
No. I don't think so. I think because it would be very naive to think that just because you're appointing or elevating women to positions of status and authority, even ones as great as like political authority, secretaries, etc., that means and you're like presupposing that those women in those positions of power being appointed are fine with the social equality of women.
Those sexist misogynists always empowering women.
Like, what are we trying to argue here again? That like Donald Trump is not sexist? You like Donald Trump because he is sexist. So even if I was completely BTFO'd on this point, and optically I don't think I'm doing that great as far as this back and forth with him, yay, your W is that what? Trump's less based than you say that he is. Got him? The reason why you like Trump is because he's misogynistic and sexist, I thought.
That's like a contradiction in terms.
I don't think so. I think
totally
they're
it's a contradiction in
empowering
terms.
women that have very rigid ideas of what womanhood and what women ought to be doing with their lives. And in those
Which
ways,
is what? Girl bossing in the administration, in the most powerful positions in the world? Those damn misogynists?
Do you think that it's mutually exclusive that you could be sexist but also appoint a lot of women to positions of power?
I think that it's logically possible, but practically impossible.
See, again, he was saying no. He thinks it. He was saying he said no at first, and then he switched it to yes. It's improbable. This idea that like if you just hire enough women, that precludes you from sexism allegations. Apparently, he would never buy this with anything else. We would never buy this if he were to say you hate Christians, and I was like, but how come Christians work for me? Or, you know, again, like this is, it's literally the I have a black friend type argument, but he's saying Donald Trump has women who work for him. How could he be sexist? Fox News hires a bunch of women. Megyn Kelly herself spoke out about how Roger Ailes trapped her in his fucking office, locked the door behind her, literally tried to chase her around the room and tried to force her to make out with him. And when she was leaving, he called out to her, like, when does your contract end? Because she wouldn't fuck him. Are we going to say Roger Ailes wasn't sexist because he hired a bunch of women? Fuck, I should have used Roger Ailes. He would have been a good example.
Probable.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, so do you agree with me that Superman's logically possible?
Yes.
But practically
impossible.
impossible?
That's the other thing. Hiring a woman also puts her in a position under himself, creating an employer-employee power differential dynamic. Oh, I also should have said Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo would have been a fucking good example. Andrew Cuomo was found to have elevated different women to positions because he was trying to have sex with them. That was reported in I think like the Attorney General's report or memorandum on documenting and investigating the sexual harassment allegations that he faced.
Possible?
Correct.
Okay, great. Glad we got that cleared up.
Yeah, so sometimes it takes me a while to form my argument. So I do want to go back to your, the voting thing, because I do believe that any policies that consider children first will be fundamentally good for all of society. So if the people that are voting for those policies have a vested interest in the continuation of our country as you know, a free democratic republic, if they consider the children first, I think that's good for everybody. So that would kind of be my argument for that.
So again, if you don't have offspring, you really should have less of a say in the government because you don't have kids. It's so stupid.
And then you asked me about his administration being women. I didn't say women can't work. I didn't say
I didn't say women can't work. I'm just saying if they choose to do that, I'm going to go around saying that, heavily discouraging it and castigating them for that decision. I didn't say that they couldn't do it.
They will only be fulfilled.
I didn't say that, people shouldn't say slurs. People can say slurs. I'm just going to call them out for it every single time. It's like, okay, you're at the point where you're saying that you're going to put up barriers for people to be able to do that without comment. In the case of slurs, that's not even a bad thing. I'm just saying. It's the same logic.
By a family. Like I said, I'm single. I don't have a family. I just think for the most part, for most women, the lie that they were sold.
Okay, well, she says she's single. Now it's unclear to me because she said her husband later.
And I guarantee if you ask any of these women in the administration, if they were asked to give up their job to put their family first, they would. I know Karoline Leavitt would.
She's probably the worst example you could have picked. She had her baby. Again, she literally just said Karoline Leavitt would put her family first. Watch what I say. And then declined to have a maternity leave. I think after maybe 2-3 days after giving birth, she was right back on the job because she said it was her duty to do this because Donald Trump had faced, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 assassination attempts at that time. But that's an example of a working woman that actually put her motherly duties secondary to her professional life.
But she's also working for someone.
But you literally just said, I don't think Karoline Leavitt would do something like that. Like literally stepping on a rake. I could not believe that she actually said that. Hold on. If I put Karoline Leavitt. And funnily enough, Sarah Stock is trending on Twitter for different reasons. The only reason why I know that is because I happened to be on Twitter and seeing this beef that was unfolding between Sarah Stock and Emily for America, or Loves America, Saves America, another blonde Fox News commentator, right-wing lady, saying, and she was criticizing Karoline Leavitt for taking for skipping maternity leave. Maternity leave. She literally had her baby and 3 days later went back to work.
Good afternoon, everybody. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt has been keeping a little secret. The 28-year-old got decked out in a fitted white sweater dress for the holidays, revealing her itty-bitty baby bump on Instagram. The greatest Christmas gift we could ever ask for, a baby girl coming in May 2026. It's Leavitt's second child with her real estate developer husband, 60-year-old Nicholas Riccio. When asked about the pregnancy on Fox,
she's pregnant now. Yeah, there's like a whole MAGA baby boom going on right now. Usha Vance is pregnant. Karoline Leavitt's pregnant. There's another woman who's pregnant in the MAGA.
President's daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, hinted that Leavitt's maternity leave would be brief, possibly taking just a few days off from the White House.
She's already done this. They're already talking about how for the second one, she's not going to take a full maternity leave yet again.
Let's get to it.
Karoline Leavitt is a machine. She's incredible, and she's going nowhere.
She also pointed out that the press secretary took very little time off when she was pregnant with her firstborn, Nico, in 2024.
People saying, who's next in line? Nobody's next in line.
Very little does it, again, like 72 hours later, after she pushes that kid out of her, after she gives birth, she was back on the fucking job. Back to spouting her bullshit.
It's Karoline. She can do everything. She did this, by the way, during the Trump campaign. She was pregnant and delivered her son, Nico, and then was back to work within a couple of days. She's amazing.
She's just so amazing. Wow. She's so amazing for doing that. Again, 3 days after giving birth, back to work. Wow. Awesome country. Awesome feminist moment. Or, sorry, anti-feminist moment, I mean.
That she sees that is going to secure the future for her child.
Yeah, but it doesn't change the 6-year-old still has swimmers. Men can impregnate women till the day they die, usually. Fact that she is prioritizing girl bossing it up and going to work and her professional attainment.
You don't know what's in her head, though. You don't know why. Well, you're drawing inferences, but you don't know why she's doing what she's doing. I bet
you're not in her head, though. Okay, I hate, like, literally this happened last time I was on Tim Pool. We can't make evaluations of people's actions, the words that they say, anything that they do, because you're not literally in their head. Your Honor, I know that you think this person is guilty of first-degree murder, premeditated, but have you ever considered that you're not actually in their head? So how can you really prove that? I mean,
if you asked her, she would say, I want to secure a future for my child that isn't going to tell me that my daughter can become a boy. And it's temporary. Her job is only...
Yeah, I'm sure she's going to go say the 14 words up on the fucking podium. Can you believe that she said that?
I bet if you asked her, she would say, I want to secure a future for my child that isn't going to tell me.
Yeah, I'm sure if you ask Karoline Leavitt what she wants, she would tell you, she would say the 14 words, correct?
My daughter can become a boy. And it's temporary.
Sure
her job is only 3 more years.
Yeah, I'm sure that's her cope answer. I do think when you, regardless of her
3 years.
Her subjective intent, when you analyze the effect that she's having on the world, her actions, she's putting herself first over her domestic duties of being a mother when she could have taken that maternity leave. She could have done that, but she chose to
Didn't you say earlier? Didn't you say earlier that you have to, by necessity, have a 2-income household?
This is not actually in any way, shape, or form undermining my argument, but I will get into it. But the TLDR is that there is absolutely a difference between working for a subsistence living and what is necessary for you to provide for your family alongside your partner versus maximizing professional outcomes, all while maintaining that you are anti-feminist and believe in traditional gender roles and that women ought to be in the home. It makes no sense. Yeah, for the most part, yeah. If you want to have the best outcomes,
I don't understand. If it's the case that women need to have a 2-income household, right, then aren't they being forced
into... Yeah, they need 2 incomes. They don't need to be the press secretary. She could literally do any other job.
The work situation.
She could work part-time and still be able to support her child.
And if that's the case, how can you say...
Also, Karoline Leavitt is already an exception to the rule because I'm pretty sure her husband is independently wealthy. I'm saying the majority of people, like 2 people when one person is wealthy, and I'm pretty sure we know in this instance that Karoline Leavitt's husband is, she doesn't need to be working. This is 100% a choice.
That her subjective intent...
She's married to a real estate millionaire.
...is not to put her family first if the requirement to feed her family is to work.
I said that I think that that's her cope answer because... Yeah, can a girl eat? Again, this bitch, we're talking about the White House press secretary, that she's got to do this or else, she should starve. It's not fair.
seems to me incongruent given the types of beliefs
but it seems
women like
your
Karoline
answer,
Leavitt
seems like your answer is P and not
is
P.
kind of rules for thee, not for me.
Yeah, sure,
Like
but
she will make the prescription that other women ought to, focus on raising their family, their domestic duties, being a good wife,
maybe. Let's assume for a second.
But
She's got her kids. Have you seen the White House lately? There's kids all over the
Let's assume for a moment you're right, and she's a total hypocrite and completely wrong.
And like so many of their arguments are literal or non-arguments, I should say. Again, he's not wrong that it is literal. It's the tu quoque fallacy. It's basically saying that hypocrisy is not in and of itself an argument or counter argument to somebody else's claim. Just because somebody else is not acting in conformity with the assertions that they make or prescriptions that they make does not actually undermine the merit of their argument whatsoever. I was not saying that. I was saying that if you are going to be indicting feminists on the basis that they promise XYZ, but they themselves don't hold true to their values, and it's because it's not realistic and it's not what makes people happy and people don't actually want it. I'm using the same metric to be able to say that these supposedly trad women, these conservative, pro-family, women should be in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant type women, they don't embody these values, and so they pay lip service to it. But the reality is, if they would need to lead by example if they were truly committed to getting more and more people on their side.
Right.
That does nothing for your position.
No, I'm not saying it does. I was only saying it's the worst example she could have brought up.
I'm just saying that does nothing for your position because your position's P and not P. It's like, yeah, we require 2 incomes in order to raise a family, but look at her girl bossing out there working, not prioritizing her family.
Wait,
that would
Andrew,
be P and not P.
Andrew, I'm doing an internal critique. I'm saying that based off of Karoline Leavitt's espoused personal values, that her actions are at odds with that. Now, I personally don't believe that there's an issue with a woman who is able to provide for her child via hiring nannies, private childcare, if her husband, et cetera, returning to work and declining to have an extended
Well, let me do the
leave.
internal critique back. So
Sure,
then if she's out there and she's working, right, you would say that she is prioritizing family values.
Well, yeah, under my belief system, I don't think that those are mutually exclusive.
Okay, well then the argument that you have then is pretty weak here, isn't it? Because isn't your argument here that
How is my argument weak? I'm literally saying that choice feminism allows for women like Karoline Leavitt to lead their fascist lives. And the issue that I take with it is not because there's a woman in the fucking workplace, it's for all other sorts of reasons, but it's not for that. That's not the issue.
Women who are in a position where they're forced to work, right? They have to in order to take care of their families.
Everybody has to work.
That's not actually a feminist ideal then. That's no longer within the domain of feminism, is it? Because it's a force to work rather than a choice to work.
I mean, I would agree, yeah, but then that gets
you're arguing from the...
That gets into criticisms of like our economic system and the fact that we don't do more.
Yeah, maybe, but we're talking about feminist values right now, and you can't say that it's a feminist value now that women work because by your own logic, they have to.
No, but I didn't say it's feminist for women to work. I said it's feminist for women to have the choice to work, and I don't think I drew attention to the fact that he's making like a key, that's a small but meaningful distinction in my argument.
It sort of, I think, supports the claim that feminism has or is destroying the United States in that in the 50s, they were like, hey, ladies, you should go get a job. Don't feel like you have to be stuck at home. They're like, okay, great. So they went and got jobs. And then there was 2 incomes for the family. Then the economy formed around that. And now we're in a position where like, it's not even feminism anymore. Like if you don't have 2 incomes, you better be making twice as much as, you're like in the 1%. I don't know what the numbers
it can even be argued. I mean, it depends on what you value. There's plenty of families that have a lot of children and they just, again, is it ideal? But what's your priority? Is your priority vacations to the Bahamas, vacations to Florida? There's plenty of families that sacrifice to do, better and best by their children, which means a mother at home. So I think it depends on where you live.
Poor women have always worked. Yeah, this is total like mythology surrounding like the 1950s and this idea that like post World War II, post Industrial Revolution, like women were largely relegated to the home. That's not fucking true. Women have always been working, especially single women.
If you're insisting on living in New York City and raising a family,
right,
then you're going to need a 2-income thing. But if you decide to live in, traveling here from West Palm Beach, I literally went coast to coast to Florida. The middle of Florida is nothing like either side.
Yeah, but do you see that her criticism of you now no longer makes sense?
Yes,
because
I do. Yep.
From her view,
Wait, I still have issues with the way that you're characterizing it.
Okay,
sure.
And then you can respond, I promise. But within your view, if she's out there working and girl bossing all day to bring home that paycheck, that's not a feminist ideal. You criticizing women for working is now no longer on the plate. How can it be on the plate if you say that it's a requirement for survival? So
I should have made it more clear that I was not. There are exceptions, and Karoline Leavitt is an exception to this rule. And I didn't even invoke Karoline Leavitt as an example. She brought her up. I was responding to her claim. The specific claim that I was responding to, just to refresh everybody's memory, was she said, I don't think Karoline Leavitt. She said, I didn't say I have an issue with women working, and I don't think Karoline Leavitt would not put her family first. And I said, that is the worst example because Karoline Leavitt literally put her job over prioritizing her family under your view. Because you see it as mutually exclusive, that women could be working and also rearing a child, especially in these very, very critical formative, like newborn months or whatever.
They would be prioritizing family first. It has nothing to do with feminism now.
I think there's a difference between what I'm criticizing is that, yes, under our current economic order, if you want to maximize the outcomes for your children, be able to provide for them adequately, dual incomes is ideal. But for one, I also champion change to be able to support young people, families, etc., being able to have access to paid paternity leave.
And this is the feminist position, feminist support, expanded access to reproductive care. That way there can be actual family planning involved. Like there are family planning decisions that are made by people before they even get pregnant and when they're deciding if they want to be pregnant, etc. They don't support things like this. I support access to, childcare, healthcare, things that will enable people to have families and not have to worry about the economic strain.
It all fall solely to the mother.
It doesn't change the fact that they have to work.
Well, if I could just finish, paid maternity leave. And as far as, yes, Karoline Leavitt has to work, but does she have to be part of the Trump administration? I do think that there's a difference between a woman getting a job.
So now you get to pick women's skill sets, or
she's already
interrupting me constantly. Let me finish the point.
I think there's a difference between a woman getting a job just because she needs to be able to survive, and then trying to allocate the majority of her time, like minimize the amount of professional time that she needs to spend working to earn an income for her family, and then maximize the time in the home, versus Karoline Leavitt, who is going out of her way to maximize the time that she spends outside of
a nice straw man, dude. Did I ever argue that she needs to be a part-time waitress? I was saying that obviously she could be making any number of different professional choices if she was really interested in prioritizing domesticity. And I should have brought up, again, the fact that she has a wealthy husband and that if she wanted to, she doesn't even need to be working at all. All of this is vanity and ego for her. This is not about economic security for her kids.
The home
so part-time
and
waitress?
Advancing her professional career.
So she needs to be a part-time waitress.
No, she doesn't need to be, but
does she need to get back to the kitchen, Aaron? Does she need to get back to the kitchen?
But I think under Karoline Leavitt's personal world,
at this point, he is being like absolutely insufferable. He like chills the fuck out a little bit into it, but at this point, again, totally insufferable.
View. These are the sorts of things that she would be saying that women ought to be doing.
No,
women ought to be relegated primarily to the home, taking care of their kids' domestic life.
If that's the case, and you're saying there's no avenue to do that because you need two incomes, then she's not even in.
I should have pointed out again. In almost all instances, the vast majority of women, with very few exceptions, Karoline Leavitt being one of them, they do not have the option to just stay at home and raise their kids. When you are the White House press secretary, so you're obviously a well-connected elite individual in our society, you're by definition an exception to the vast majority of women. She's educated and she is married to a wealthy person. She has the ability to stay home and do it herself. She doesn't want to.
She's congruent with your worldview without being a feminist right this second.
Do you really think that there's no weight to the fact that
you think this?
No, I'm about to ask you thoughts on my position. Do you think that there is not sort of any tension that exists between Karoline Leavitt's stated views or our guests' stated personal views as like contrasted against their choices that don't align with what they espouse? Do you think that there's not a tension that undermines their own ideology there?
Yeah, but all you're doing at that point is saying that the prisoner doesn't like the prison food but eats it anyway. And that's what your view now has reduced to. The prisoner doesn't like the prison food, but he eats it anyway. It's a terrible...
She's not eating prison food. Again, she's she is doing things to get promotions. That would be like saying, like the closer analogy to it would be if we were talking about an impoverished woman and I was trying to indict her for working, even though I've already stated that women have to work largely in society to be able to support them. to the extent that women are, we didn't even get to the fact that to the extent that women are relegated to the home, it's because women don't want to work if all of their income is just going to go towards childcare because they, like, why are you going to do that? If you're only going, if like 80% of your check just goes to paying somebody else to raise your kid, most women are like, fuck it, I'll take a few years off. I will raise my kids and then I'll go back into the workforce when they can go to school.
Argument.
It's,
you're also
that's not
assuming
an argument
you
at
know-
all. It's a descriptive observation for one, and for two, my argument is that
wait,
we ought
no,
to
it is an
expand
argument.
programs so we can support people doing these things.
It is an argument because you used it as support for feminism. That would be an argument, one. And two, you can make observational arguments. That's the second thing. You know this from philosophy. I've seen your videos. You know at least basic philosophy.
What videos has he seen? I should have asked him this. I was like, what, you're Andrew Wilson staying up late watching Straighterade content? What are you talking about, dude? What have you seen from me? Yeah, you can make descriptive observations, but I think what we're more interested in is exploring the normative claims surrounding these descriptive observations.
Well, we haven't done any normative claims. That means moral. We haven't gone into any moral anything.
I have a...
Wait, yeah, just let me say something. I think
President Right-Winger here saying you have a fair point here. And I mean, I hope, maybe this is cope on my part, that people who are not just already Andrew Wilson fanboys obviously see that Karoline Leavitt is literally just somebody who pays lip service to the idea of being a champion of traditional family values, when if they actually cared about those things, believed in those things for themselves, they would be leading by example. They would basically be Mennonite women, or they would be in the home at the very least, raising their own kids and letting their millionaire husband be the fucking breadwinner.
Idea of people who kind of...
You know this from philosophy. I'm going to start tacking that onto the end of every claim. It really, really helps boost its credibility, especially if you're a man.
What I call myself is after feminism, a world after feminism. It's not going back to women not working. But I do believe, again, there are biological difference between men and women. You can discuss what different professions, where they're catered toward. She has a very kind of feminine role. Like press secretary, a lot of the times is a woman. And you don't know how often that child is with her in the White House. They've been extremely accommodating to children.
You don't know if she's bringing her child to work. Okay, what?
The White House. There's a lot.
Then that would be literally, again, one. Do we even think that workplace environments are the place for kids to be reared and raised? Why? For one, or safe. For two, if that is the case, then it's an accommodation that's being made for an employer. But most employers in the industrial developed countries like Denmark, Sweden, the Nordic model, etc., they just let you stay home. They don't bother with trying to demand that employers outfit their places of business to accommodate screaming children. At that point, you should just not be working.
People
Does she bring her kid to work?
Yeah. They bring them to the White House.
Do you think that children ought to be in the workplace?
Just wait, let me just finish. Why
Hell
not?
yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Put those little bastards sweeping the chimneys. Do it immediately. I'm 4 years old. I want the coal suit on the face.
No. This goes back to home economics. Children used to work on the farm. They used to be part. They were part of a valuable economic structure.
Yeah, and that was bad. It was bad that children had to work. And often, like you're talking about, kids would literally be pulled out of schools for families to make ends meet. Kids were, I wouldn't say that they were illiterate, but they got the minimal level of education that was necessary for them to not be considered a fucking Luddite. And then they had to go work on the farm. That was not good.
Of the home. So maybe that's shifting from the home to the workplace. Maybe they're not providing economically, but why not? Why not be
flexible? The children yearn for the mines.
About having children when mother can breastfeed. Why not be accommodating to having children around every night? It's not just take your daughter to work one day a year. And again, there are roles I think
children
that are
still
going
work,
to be
bitch. At NeverCon4000 in YouTube chat, what do we think the ideological leanings of this individual is? Are you saying? Yeah, I agree with you that you can find 16-year-olds that work at Baskin Robbins part-time. Good job, got him. He literally said little children can be sweeping mines and cleaning chimneys and shit. They can get back in the workplace. Do you think that that's what we're talking about here? Do you think we're talking about high school kids that are this close to the age of majority having a part-time job? Or are we talking about kids under the age of 12, literally prepubescent minors being forced to engage in labor?
More feminine, that I think that are more conducive to a women fulfilling than a man.
Not you. Oh, okay. You're at a misnomer. I feel bad that I just yelled at you from YouTube chat.
We can talk about construction workers. You want to go down in a manhole and do that job?
No.
Right.
I don't think most men want to be doing backbreaking labor either. Hopefully we get to a point where we can automate beyond these jobs, but yeah.
But they're more physically built.
That's actually objectively.
He gets triggered because I said, I don't think most men who do construction do so for any other reason except for economic coercion. I also don't think, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret here. The person who bagged your groceries at Walmart, they probably don't want to be doing that either. Also, the person who flipped your burger at McDonald's, they wouldn't do that if they weren't getting paid either. But we know for certain that the people that are digging ditches, the people that are in agricultural fields, the ones that are laying concrete and bricks and cement, etc. I guess concrete and cement are the same thing, right? Engaged in construction is what I'm saying. Are they doing this because they just love it so much? They're so naturally drawn to this?
Incorrect.
They're more physically built for those jobs.
Well, it's not just a matter of more physically built for the jobs. Men have preferences also to work with their hands.
Yeah.
Oh, so just to go underground.
I mean, there's physiological, not just.
Oh yeah, like the producer like started waving his hand, so I like gestured to Andrew because I thought he was trying to get Andrew's attention, but he was like raising his hand saying like, I like to work with my hands, says the guy sitting behind a desk managing the production of this podcast.
Often talking about you, little bro. They have preferences towards physical labor and working with their hands.
Maybe, because I wouldn't just say working with their hands, because you can do a lot of things. You can create art with your hands.
That ain't working with your hands.
I play some guitar.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of...
Get down with a face mask when you're welding.
I actually don't even disagree with him that when people say working with your hands, she's obviously making like almost a broader prescriptive claim about like creative ventures, people painting, artistic adventures, whatnot ought to be considered like working with your hands. But when we think working with their hands, like we're not thinking of like a music producer who's doing like mixing in a studio or an artist painting at a fucking easel. We're obviously thinking about hard labor.
Getting dirty.
That's
you're
working with your
safety.
hands.
You're now that's not so much working with your hands. You're talking about safety.
I just missed 3 minutes of the stream from ads. Oh, that sucks. The way that you could have avoided that is if you subscribe to me using your Amazon Prime sub, or the normal way, or if you're lucky to be on the receiving end of somebody's generosity. If somebody were to gift my community subs, maybe you could be the recipient of this. Just saying. Ad-free experience. Cutie emotes.
Anything a man is doing that's working with their hands is going to be a safety hazard. Anything.
I think men are more willing to tolerate high-risk jobs, right? Coal mining.
Well, it's not tolerate. They're capable of doing
and
it.
Capable.
And
Fine, that's
women
both.
don't have the same.
The debate went off the rails. What the fuck are we talking about now? LOL. He's stopped trying to get gotchas on me, and he's now triggered over the fact that she's trying to make the argument that working with your hands can also include like strumming a guitar and painting a picture, when nobody means that when they say working with their hands.
Same physicality that men have.
Correct.
And if the guy dies, the girl can still go give birth, but the guy can't go
this
give
is usually
birth
where
if
the
girl
argument
dies.
from Outlier comes in, where you say some women can work on the oil rig.
Yeah, they can, but generally they keep expecting me to like fall into, again, like just basic pitfalls or whatever. I'm not about to be like, you know that there are women in construction, right? You know that there's women that do underwater welding, right? Who gives a fuck? I'm not like, yeah, broadly speaking, women don't do backbreaking labor, and they're smarter for it. There's a reason why women outlive men just by a little bit when you look at our median life expectation. But that is also still patriarchal results, because the reality is that even if women wanted to enter these fields, the barrier to entry exists not only because there is a bias against women even being able to do these jobs, okay, for one, but for two, the barrier to entry for women is intimidating because of that reason alone. In the same way that fields that are predominantly dominated by women, men are less likely to enter.
They don't want to.
Choosing to do that.
To answer your question, Jen, why you wouldn't bring kids into work if they disrupt the work environment, if they create a vulnerability, like they might get sick. So there's a lot of reasons why little children should not be around a work environment.
I'm not saying 24/7, but I'm saying what I'm saying is we don't need to go back to the agrarian age to make more accommodations for family-friendly policies.
I agree with you on that. I do think that she literally just said that like some employers should be accommodating of people bringing their newborn babies to work instead of just at home, because like, again, if you're at the point that you have to bring your newborn child to work, it is hard for people to keep up with their babies right after they give birth to them. Even when that is their sole job, they're at home all day with that kid for the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks if you have a C-section, which is major surgery. Like at that point, you just don't need to be at work. You're not even going to be productive. Your attention would be divided. And it would be disruptive to other employees. There's no reason for that to be the case. They should just be at home at that point.
this more as like society is
and it's
becoming.
also like, I don't see it as like a privilege that, oh, you don't have to take a maternity leave. Don't worry, you can bring your kid to work and you can work while you take care of your kid at the same time. Doesn't that sound fun? We also have the same work, like quotas for you and expectations that you have to hit.
More secular. I think that's something that has kind of been lost, but would be a positive thing to reintroduce, would be more communitarian values. And I do think it takes a village to raise a kid. And, you know, if workplaces want to be more accommodating to young families,
but it's not,
to be able to help assist them with childcare, et cetera, providing them support for childcare, or, you know, some offices I know have like childcare centers where their employees are able to bring their children while they're working. I think these sorts of things
but
are
I
positive.
didn't mean babies. I meant like younger kids. You know,
just
doesn't take a village to raise a kid.
Takes a mother and a
kids are generally raised by parents and extended
and
family.
like, this is so bad faith and stupid on his part. Did you actually think that when I said it takes a village, I was using that in the literal sense of the word, that for every one child that is born, it takes 30 people at least to be able to raise and rear that child? Or was I saying that a child's like more than just the biological parents end up being responsible for helping a child develop?
Family, and that's always been the case. And I can tell you why it's always been the case. I can prove it to you. Do you agree with me that once upon a time there were way less human beings on the world and they were spread out much more?
Yes.
And so on these plots of land that they were usually cross-generational, right?
Yes.
That was not the village. That was the extended family who was taking care of their
Andrew,
kids.
when I say it takes a village to raise a kid, did you believe that I was saying it literally takes a village, or did you, what sentiment did you make?
Due to the fact that you're a communist, yes.
Okay, well,
I
to be clear,
literally
that's
think that's what...
That is a village. But he is saying that just you have to just like grant stuff like this or whatever, because if you fight on everything, just again, he wants to be an authority and explaining things to me and being really smart. Just do it. Okay. Yeah. You're so right, dude. Yes. Yes, King. You're so correct. Correct. Yeah. I didn't even, yep, totally. Just do that and move past it. There's literally no point in fighting on this for one. I was just pointing out, I wasn't literally saying that. But what he's arguing is like, yeah, when, people were far more incestuous, they married their cousins and had kids with people that were closely related to them. Yeah, the people that were around them, by definition, ended up being their extended family because people were like inbreeding effectively. Then yes, that's the case, right? But it doesn't change, like somebody said in chat, it doesn't change the fact that that's still more than just the biological parents. But then he extended it to mean like, oh, well, their extended family does it as well. But I'm like not really disputing that.
What you mean? Because you're a communist.
I think
you're a collectivist by nature.
That's a rational inference, but to clarify that, I was not really using it in the most literal sense of the word. I was just saying that, you know, support where necessary beyond just the mother and father, I think is largely positive, and I don't think that's something to be discouraged.
Do you think childcare is equal to...
But I don't think you need an entire community of people to literally raise a children, because as you're saying, we have plenty of historic...
I did say that, but I didn't actually say that. Cloud Daddy 220 in YouTube chat, you're a moron. Yes, correct. Did you know that language carries connotations beyond the literal denotation of what we say? You ever heard of a simile? You ever heard of a fucking metaphor? Do you think that every single time that humans speak to one another, we are talking in the most literal iteration and sense of the words that we use? What do we think?
Historical examples where one or two people is more than enough to suffice to raise a child.
Yep.
And do you think childcare is of equal value to an auntie or a godmother or a grandparent?
In what sense? How do you mean?
Of taking care of a child.
Like somebody else's child? Do I think it's like as personally valuable to...
Consangent, how do you say this? Is this what it means to, in YouTube chat, is this what it means when you like have sex with your cousins, but not with your like siblings? Then why even bring it up for your point? Oh my God, Cloud Daddy 220, you were a fucking moron for one. It was literally just, I wasn't, if you actually think when I said it takes a village, I was saying that, again, it takes literally more than like 30 people per one child to raise and rear them. You're just a moron. It's not actually the literal statement that I'm saying. You ever heard of, again, have you ever heard of a simile? Have you ever heard of a metaphor?
You have a child. Would you rather put that child in daycare, or would you rather have them taken care of by an auntie? I mean, of like, are they equal? Are they of equal value and worth? An auntie.
What do we call this?
Consanguinity.
Consanguinity. I've never heard of this term. but the fact of being descended from the same ancestor.
A godmother, a grandmother.
You can't even explain yourself. You're just slinging insults. Sad. Oh, okay. So you think I'm just ad homing you? Okay. So here's what you're going to do. I'm going to link to you the Discord that I'm sitting in currently, and you can join it, and you can tell me about all of the contradictions that are entailed in my worldview, and BTFO me in front of all the people that are watching me at Cloud Daddy, since you are having trouble wrapping your brain around what a metaphor is. I'd be more than happy to explain this to you over voice. You have 5 minutes to do that. Otherwise, you're going to be banned and you can get the fuck out forever. See ya. If you don't do that, we're going to be setting a timer. But I would love to talk to you. So please join. All my viewers would love to hear what you have to say on this.
For Consuela down the street.
That's literally what you're doing. Oh, no. I don't want to hear you yap anymore in chat. I want you to join that Discord since I'm just so wrong. And come talk to me live and explain to me what part is confusing you about when I said it takes a village. Why would I bother? You just insult me and not answer. Oh, okay, so we have to run now. Why would I bother? Because you're too bad faith, right? You know.
For you.
Or your own family. I think, well, she asked just, is it better? I'll just leave, lol. No, you're going to be banned. See ya. Fucking moron. For your own family, as opposed to like nannies, etc. I'd say, yeah, I would agree with that. But I think so long as children are being supervised and watched by adults that immediately chickened out crazy. I know. Can you believe it? Are capable. I mean, would you really want to come on Voice and have to explain why you were trying to interpret the phrase "it takes a village" in the most literal sense of the word? Would you actually want to do that in front of 167 people? I wouldn't. Providing for them, that's adequate enough. But if we're asking about like what the ideal is, then I think, yeah, raised primarily by their own family is good.
There's a point made earlier I wanted to kind of poke a hole in. So you guys think that both parents have to work? Well, that was kind of a claim. It was like 100%. We've agreed. This is the situation now. This is the need.
I didn't agree with that.
Then you kind of disagreed with it. You said you can have 6 kids and live at home and stitch together. You didn't say this, but I'm thinking stitch together clothing for the kids.
Hang on. What actually happened there was a sequence of internal critiques. I had her position. She gave an internal critique to her position. And then I gave an internal critique based on her grounding foundational position, that it largely requires 2 incomes. Meaning that if that's the case.
If he knew this, then he had no basis to be internally critiquing me. Again, largely requires 2 incomes. He knew what I was saying. That even means that when he was engaging with my argument, he understood that I was not saying that without exception, every single individual, man and woman, member of society, there's no circumstances under which there is not actually a need for both people to work, and that some people have marriages where one person is unable to stay at home because the other person makes so much money, and it's not always the man. Sometimes it's the woman. Rare, but it is sometimes the case. So he understood that, and yet nonetheless he was trying to get pathetic gotchas on me, even though he understood that, and he knows that Karoline Leavitt would be an exception to that rule.
Than women who are working. This is not due to a feminist ideal. This is due to forced labor.
So should we,
from your view? From your view. So if that's the case,
I mean, it's like he said, forced labor. It's like wage slavery, but I guess I wouldn't take issue with it being called forced labor.
Then we can
it's
take
like, do the thing or poverty. It's not really a choice.
Off the table that women working right now has anything at all to do.
Someone tell me if this channel is on a fixed schedule. It just showed up when I opened the app. Definitely not a fixed schedule. It's just whenever I get around to streaming.
With them being feminist.
Wait.
Yeah,
that's where we hold on.
View. From your view. So if that's the case, then we can take off the table that women working right now has anything at all to do with them being feminist.
Wait. Okay, yeah. I don't know why he is trying to do this, and he was not really trying to do it with her arguments, even though he admitted by the end of this argument that by the end of this debate, again, I beat the shit out of her, and that I unambiguously whooped her ass in the fucking conversation. He said that to me. He didn't say it on camera, but he did say it to me. The thing is now, like, again, he's saying, you don't get to make that argument anymore. That's a separate, that doesn't get to be made. He could disagree with my points or whatever, but the thing that I'm criticizing is that he never did that to her at any point that I can remember, but maybe it comes up at some point in the next hour where he was like, sorry, she BTFO'd you on that. It's an internal contradiction. You have to stop making the argument now. He only said that to me. So that's where we can get, with them being feminist, sure, whatever, in some instances, I guess.
Not in some instances. You can't say that they're feminist because they're working. that would be a contradiction to your view that it's necessary that they're working. So the thing is, it's
but
like...
I never said it's necessary for women to work to be feminist. I said that the economic system that, like, again, that we are in necessitates that the vast majority of women work. But it's all based off of a conception of feminism that I never articulated or argued for. The extent to which I gave my definition of feminism is that, one, I accepted the dictionary definition, but I said broadly, it's the promotion of egalitarianism and the social, political, and economic equality of all genders, sexes, etc. I didn't say that like there was sort of like deontological prerequisites for what constitutes doing feminism or being a feminist.
Again, that whole worldview, I think, is built.
I literally said I was fine with women being. This is why it is like literally no feminist will ever get credit for saying, yes, I support women having the choice to do whatever they want with their lives, whether that be remaining in the home or going out and working. They will always ignore that.
Built on sand, but it is your view that almost all women under your communist, and you're using a Marxist lens for analysis, I'm guessing, right?
Sure.
Okay, so under your Marxist
lens. I just granted that because what am I going to do? Fight with him? If he said, you're not using a Marxist lens or whatever, it's like, I mean, critical theory would be more apt than saying like saying a Marxist lens specifically. But yeah, again, like a materialist analysis of the world, sure, but there's like I just grant stuff like this because there's no point in trying to like fight with it because I don't even know where we would go with that.
Lens. Right now, what's going on is that the proletariat is being exploited by the evil bourgeoisie and forcing these poor women who would rather stay at home with their little kids suckling at the teat into the workforce where they must slave away in order to, help their capitalist overlords so they can bring the paycheck home when they'd much rather be at home.
No. I'm not saying that absent any economic coercion that you wouldn't see women opting to not have kids or still participate and do labor, et cetera, throughout their day. It would just depend on that individual person at that point.
You think? Well, they're doing labor regardless.
I think you would be able to see people being able to actually like live true to their values absent this like massive...
You would actually be able to see how many women are interested in this sort of domestic life and these like anti-feminist ideals that Phyllis Schlafly over here is arguing for if we lived in a stateless, classless, moneyless society where people didn't have to be economically coerced to make certain decisions.
The economic coercive factor.
So we can't say it's defensible that because a woman's working, it's contrary to her values of being an anti-feminist. That just doesn't make any sense under that analysis.
But as I said, I think that there is a tension there that exists when you're going so far as to maximize your professional outcomes as opposed to doing the minimum that is necessary to be able to provide for yourself.
That doesn't make any sense under that analysis either. Why would you not try to maximize your earning outcomes if it's required that you earn money?
If you are anti-feminist, you would not do that thing, Andrew. That's why. If you said that you cared about domesticity, family life, having kids, your money's not everything. Professionalism and career opportunities are not everything. You would not try to maximize your income. That was my argument. Yes. I don't understand how we didn't get this. That was what I was saying. There's a point of diminishing returns that if this were truly about Karoline Leavitt working because she needs the fucking money, then it would make sense. But Karoline Leavitt is not doing that. She is voluntarily putting herself in this position, even though she has the means to do otherwise, even though she has stated values to the contrary, contrary to how she lives her life.
In order to give your kids a better life.
If you are a ruthless capitalist that is seeking profit above all else, or an individual laborer who cares about nothing except money and promotions, then it is rational under that view to maximize your income and your earnings. If you are a anti-feminist trad wife navigating the 21st century and you're trying to reconcile your personal beliefs with your professional life would not entail anything other than the bare minimum amount of labor necessary to support yourself and your family.
In this particular environment.
Because
of course you're going to maximize
there's more to
those.
life than money, just because I think it's rational for people, women included, to try to maximize their professional achievements. If you really truly believe that a big part of your life ought to be centered around domesticity, then I think that there would come a point where you would deprioritize taking every single professional step, promotion, etc., to maximize those earnings, and say if the entire point of working and the entire point of earning money is to be able to enable.
He's literally attempting to just hand wave my argument by going, it's arbitrary, it's arbitrary. I hate when people do this, like as if just because something is subjective or arbitrary, that doesn't mean, and I'm about to bring it up, that you cannot introduce a rubric or standards to try to evaluate people. Guess what? Music taste is completely arbitrary and subjective, but nonetheless, you can still attempt to rank it and evaluate it based off a consistent set of principles that you judge it off of. So music that, again, you care about tempo, you care about intonation, you care about pitch, you care about rhythm. It's you care about if you have genre preferences or whatever. That would be a way to say which music is superior to other forms of music. But it would be highly reductive to say, well, all of that just grounds out into your subjective preferences. That's trivially obvious and entailed anytime you engage in, you try to have rankings or make value judgments of things that are just inherently subjective. A domestic life that makes my family happy.
Yeah,
but
I don't need to
go so far as to become like the press secretary for the United States.
Feels and vibes. You're just like, I feel like now it's too much.
But you're also getting into
where do we get to the actual threshold here? How many promotions can she take before now she's a feminist? Do you just have to feel it and vibe it out, or what?
Isn't this?
And I was not saying that Karoline Leavitt is a feminist or or really even embodying feminism. I never made that argument, for one. For two, I said that I was only saying, again, the initial thing that I was responding to is her claim that Karoline Leavitt would not prioritize her professional life over her family. And I said that was the worst choice you could have picked, because we know for a fact that for her first child, she prioritized getting back to work and over her domestic duties and taking a maternity leave. Okay. Even though a maternity leave is already a social and professional expectation for women. So she wouldn't have even been doing a social faux pas by not getting back on the job as quickly as possible. She did not need to get back to work after 3 days after giving birth. She chose to do that.
Continuum.
Before now she's a feminist. Do you just have to feel it and vibe it out, or what?
And again, now we're at levels of strawman that I didn't even think was previously possible. So I never argued that Karoline Leavitt is actually a feminist. The most I would be willing to argue is that Karoline Leavitt is able to do the things that she is doing because of feminism, because of achievements that are the result of feminism. But I never argued or insinuated that Karoline Leavitt herself is a feminist or embodying feminist values. For one. For two, he's now saying, how many promotions before you say it's just vibes or whatever, when we're presupposing so many things. Again, the argument was that you don't need to be maximizing your professional outcomes if you're trying to reconcile in the 21st century being a supposedly trad woman who also works. You wouldn't do that.
This is a continuum fallacy?
Well, it's not a continuum fallacy. If it's the case that your position is you become a feminist at X point, when is that point?
I don't even disagree with you that a lot of it does come down to what you're saying is vibes, but I would say
at this point, just he's trying to be you're a silly emotional woman or whatever, and it's you know what, just grant it, because the harder you fight on this, or Sorority's paradox, the harder you fight on it, the more he's going to try to do it and make you look obstinate. And so it's you know what, dude, yeah, whatever, it feels, it's vibes. Can we actually address the substance of what I am saying here? But again, we were so many layers removed from trying to address the level of strawman that we were engaged in, which I guess I should have clarified. I went the easy way of granting it or whatever, because I didn't really think it meaningfully cut against my argument, nor did he really understand or was willing to engage with the argument that I was making, for one. But I guess I could have said, yeah, this is not ever what I argued. This only came up in response to what she was saying. Sorority's paradox, sometimes known as the paradox of the heap, is a paradox that results from vague predicates. A typical formulation involves a heap of sand from which grains are removed individually, with the assumption that removing a single grain does not cause a heap not to be considered a heap anymore. The paradox is to consider what happens when the process is repeated enough times that only one grain remains, and if it is still a heap. If not, then the question asks when it changed from a heap to a non-heap. So again, if a heap is reduced by a single grain at a time, at what exact point does it cease to be considered a heap? This is literally verbatim what he asked me. Oh, so at what point, how many promotions is Karoline Leavitt allowed to take before you're saying she's not a feminist anymore, even though I literally never argued that she was a feminist? Fallacious reasoning. Subjective or arbitrary lines, but just because something is arbitrary doesn't mean that we couldn't introduce some sort of like subjective rubric to try to see.
Great. What's the subjective rubric? I want to hear it.
Well, it's a diminishing return on work. Like if I need income, it doesn't mean I need to maximize all the way because there's exhaustion that comes in. So you have to, there's like
he was so close. It's not exhaustion, but he was laying out what I was about to say, which is that it's going to be it's going to be indexed to literally every single individual. Because a person who is living in Miami Beach with a kid and a husband is going to have a different cost of living than somebody who lives out in Appalachia or in a fucking suburb in, Minnesota. All of these people have different education or needs. People who have disabled children are going to need more money. People who have, twins, or if you have 3, 4, 5, 6 kids, something like that, you're going to require more money, a higher household income. That also has to factor in, again, your cost of living. And then there's also just like lifestyle inflation. How extravagantly do you even want to live? So if you need all of those things while also trying to maintain that you're a trad woman or a trad wife or live by conservative family values, you're going to have to find ways to reconcile all those things. But the thing that would be the commonality among them is that you would do the minimum amount of work necessary that enables you to live the values that are in conformity with your stated personal preferences and beliefs.
There's resistance that picks up the more you do.
Can we just look at the practical aspect? Because you're picking on Karoline Leavitt, right? You're saying she's a terrible example.
You brought her up.
I did, but you said it.
That's a good point. You did bring her up.
That's fine, but you said she's a terrible example. I will say she's not a terrible example. That woman had a career.
Because you said, again, I should have drawn attention to the fact that, no, you made the claim, lady, that she would not be prioritizing her work over her family when she literally did that and is going to do it again in May this year.
Before she got married and had children. That was that was her trajectory. Would you rather her go just work at a restaurant now or do something that she's not good at?
I think Karoline Leavitt is fine making the professional choices that she did.
This is the trajectory she's on, right? Whether the way I see it is God's given her talent. She is.
It's not that she shouldn't be the press secretary because she's a woman. She shouldn't be the press secretary because I don't even think this admin should be in charge right now. I don't even think it's legitimate that Donald Trump was elected president. I don't even think he should have been on the fucking ballot. I think he's a fucking insurrectionist, and it should have been unconstitutional for him to even be on ballots in the fucking states. How about that, dude?
Using the talents and treasures God has given her to the best of her ability to provide for her family. There is no reason she should start a new career because, if she can manage, she also was obviously healthy enough to get pregnant. When you talk to a lot of women in the workforce, and if we want to go to the fertility thing, they will tell people, women who want to get pregnant, I'll get pregnant in a minute if I quit my job. It's the stress of that workplace environment,
This claim is insane. This idea that women don't get pregnant while they're employed all of the fucking time is crazy. Women have kids after they have employment. They don't have they don't want to have kids when they lose their job. Unfortunately, given if you look at data or whatever, income has not always been, education is more of a predictor for how many kids you're going to have more so than income. But even in the Great Depression and these agrarian societies that we were talking about, again, when I say that I support these policies that would expand access to childcare, that would help support young families that want to raise children in, this capitalist, atomized, gig economy hellscape that we're in, yeah, that would be a nice push. But the reality is that these sorts of incentives, even in countries I think it's like Japan, that are trying to incentivize more women to have kids, that are giving out stipends and trying to give, I don't know if it's tax credits, but they're creating economic incentives to try to get women in Japan to have more kids. Continually, women that are educated in Japan are opting to not take those and advance their careers. So it's not a guarantee that if you provide these social safety nets that you're going to see higher instances of women having kids. What you will see, though, is better outcomes for the kids that are born.
Trying to act like a man in the workplace environment, that doesn't allow them to be feminine. Somehow she's kept her femininity. She's still getting pregnant.
But this claim on its face is already insane. Women want to have babies after they quit their jobs. What? That's when women want to have abortions.
Health is still there to allow her to have children, and she happens to be on this career trajectory. Let's come back in 3 years and see what decision she makes after this job is finished. Again, her job is temporary. And you look at someone like Susie Wiles. This is kind of like late stage careers. She's had her children. They're out of the house. So this is good for her now. I truly believe, women can work. It's just they can have it all, but not all at the same time. Right. And so Megyn Kelly.
Okay, but women can have it all, but they can't have it all at the same time. This is the anti-feminist, apparently. This is like shit that you hear from, again, like girl boss type feminists.
He talks about this,
Like, sure, I think her name is like Sheryl Sandberg, like these types of feminists.
Her career kind of skyrocketed after her children were a little older. So I just think that women can do different things at different times. Different jobs are more conducive to different periods.
Has never really been a time where Megyn Kelly has not been working for the last 10, 15 years. So I don't know what she's talking about. Like, yeah, she's bigger than ever now, but she was pretty big on Fox News, and that's when her kids were younger.
Of women's life, you can't get away from the biological constraints that women are under.
So I want to ask you to clarify what you meant by women shouldn't try to act like a man in the workplace. What do you mean by that?
I think it depends, again, on the job. If the time and dedication and stress it takes to become.
Megyn, I think, did tick halfway off when kids were young, though. Did she? I thought if she took a hiatus, I thought it was a result of the fact that she was fired or they canceled her show. So early career, 2003, Kelly moved to Washington, D.C., hired by the ABC affiliate WJLA-TV as a general assignment reporter, covered confirmations. From 2004 to 2017, she was at Fox News. 2017, 2018, NBC. There was maybe a 2-year hiatus because then from here it goes 2018 to 2020 to present independent media. I think not 4 years. If she ever stopped working, it was 2 years. And look, yeah, it was because she was fired. On October 23rd, 2018, Kelly was criticized for on-air remarks, or not fired, sorry. Her show wasn't renewed or it was canceled because it didn't get good ratings. Was criticized for on-air remarks she made on Megyn Kelly Today related to the appropriateness of blackface as part of Halloween costumes. She recollected that when I was a kid, that was okay as long as you were dressing up like a character, and defended Luann Lessup's use of skin darkening spray to wear a Diana Ross Halloween costume. After receiving backlash for her comments, Kelly issued an internal email apologizing for the remarks later that day. 3 days later, NBC canceled Megyn Kelly Today. It had been reported that Kelly was considering ending the program to focus on her role as a correspondent. Her employment was terminated on January 11, 2019, and she was paid the $30 million due for the remainder of her contract. She was paid $30 million even though she was fucking fired. What? That's insane. Oh my God. Holy fucking shit. $30 million. Even though they had to get rid of her show because of poor ratings because she defended blackface. Holy fuck. No wonder she took 2 years off. It wasn't even do we actually think that it was for fucking to take care of her kids? It was because she got cut a fat fucking paycheck. Holy fucking welfare. Holy shit.
A good lawyer is a lot more demanding. Right. So if a woman wants to be a lawyer, that's going to take a bigger toll on her physical health.
Pretty sure the break was because she was still under contract and had a non-compete. Yeah, exactly. If she took that hiatus, it was literally because she was just basically for a furloughed employee because of her misconduct and being in violation of the contract, them wanting to terminate her, but having to buy her out of her contract by paying her $30 million, even though she did not actually render the fucking services that they paid her for.
Say if she wants to, I don't know, be an artist or have something that's a little softer. But the fact of the matter is law, medical fields, they're kind of...
And it's so funny that she's saying that art is that's a woman's domain, basically. Lady, take a look around. Who is primarily responsible and recognized for the art in this world? I'm not saying that this is because they are the best. I'm just saying this is a descriptive observation of whose talents have been recognized in art, okay? The overwhelming majority of notable painters, artists, etc., they're men. When it comes to cinema, we can name on one hand notable female directors, okay? Jane Campion, Catherine Bigelow, okay? The woman who what's her name? She directed Frances Ha. Greta Gerwig, okay? There's not really a lot of female directors. Singing, you could say like singing has more women, but it's still a thing that's overwhelmingly dominated by male talent. You know, acting maybe, but like that, would she even like call that like soft and feminine?
Dog eat dog. If they're based on skills, if they're based on skill set, if you're going by
medical fields, but you just said that
even
when most people, again, like most people would struggle to even name 3 female artists, like Frida Kahlo, Georgia O'Keeffe. I know I can name like a third one. Can I name a third one? It's mostly men.
You were you said a hospital, you were recently visiting your mother, that when you were
ever since I've known about people like Megyn Kelly, Tomi Lahren, and Laura Ingraham, they've always been working. Yeah, they have always been. Candace Owens, all of these people, they have always been working. They haven't, like, Brett Cooper had a baby and is continuing to do YouTube videos.
Interacting with the female healthcare professionals that you actually found them to be more suitable to those roles.
I didn't say more suitable. I said,
what did you say? I don't mean to.
They had a better bedside manner. So that is one of those roles.
Were they
I also don't
physicians
judge
or nurses,
women.
or what roles were they in?
Both. But all of the nurses were women.
Interesting.
Right. But she said at the beginning of this, and I caught it this time because I knew that it would come back up. She said, the physician that treated my mom demonstrated a really good level of bedside care, but I also assume that she obviously, again, and I say this, if you were trusting her with your mom's care, you also thought she was a good physician.
You did have a female physician that you felt had exceptional bedside standard, and you did trust with your mom's care, right?
Yeah. I'm not saying she's not able to. I also don't judge her for whatever choices she's made. I don't know her family life. Again,
I am getting a little bit like autistic and tripped up over, like, I'm not saying that they're not able to, but we're not talking about whether or not you're disputing women have the capacity to work. We are saying that what you have argued is that if women choose to work, you will judge them for that choice. You will argue that it ought to be discouraged. You will say it's not a virtue.
This is where, like,
these are the arguments made by American school children when asked about what boys and girls like. These people are such poor thinkers, because honestly, the reason, even if she spent more time thinking about it, you would still really, really struggle, because all of this stuff is a matter of socialization for the most part. The reason why, like, again, the go-to example that I always had, like, pink used to be considered a boy's color. Now it is largely associated with women and girls and being feminine or whatever. These sorts of things can change all of the time. When computers were first invented, you saw more parity between the amount of men and women in those fields, like computer engineering and computer sciences. It was only later that it started to primarily be dominated by men, but it didn't start off that way. This is not something that is absent, that is not going to be influenced by social forces or anthropological or sociological reasons.
I think the debate comes of what is good for women, but they've made their own choices, but I don't think it's at odds with feminism.
Andrew saying that, like, he feels that too much of my...
Honestly, are we sure we can believe you're a tan Latina? Dude, they're doing me so dirty here. I don't have brunette hair. I have black hair. Again, it's only my camera that looks this washed out. Everybody else doesn't look this way. Ian looks a little bit like this, and it might just be that angle or whatever, but the woman and Andrew look okay. I look so bad.
Internal critiques or whatever rely on sort of cutoff lines that, like, vibes and arbitrary red lines that I'm drawing. What you're outlining really does sound very vibes based, which is that you're fine with women, taking certain professional roles or whatever. And every time I ask you for specificity, you're kind of like, well, it's really going to depend on the individual, and we don't know their life story. We don't know
the medical
this,
field
and it
is
just
different.
seems like you're incapable of
That's
making work.
Look, that's a fair critique. That's a fair critique.
I get it.
It just seems like you're incapable of making kind of broad prescriptive claims that don't lead to a bunch of examples that you will say, well, that's an exception, that worked in that case, and that's an exception, that works in that case. But then just how many more examples would you need would I need to introduce to you before you're like, maybe these standards that I've outlined just really don't hold up to scrutiny.
And this is the good faith way that you approach somebody to point out that you feel that they're engaging in the continuum fallacy, or that they don't really they haven't outlined a rule or standard that they can meaningfully stick by, or actually tells us about anything. I don't know if you guys saw that recent debate between Pisco and Hutch, but he was saying to Hutch, if the standard for what constitutes being in the coalition and being supportive of Democrats is that you endorse Kamala Harris and you support Democrats broadly, we actually have more evidence that Hassan conforms to that standard. And Kyle Kulinski conforms to that standard more than even Joe Manchin, who left the Democratic Party, who did not endorse Kamala Harris and was largely critical of her. And as his when he was a senator, his like lame duck session, he started voting against Democratic measures. But nonetheless, Hutch had praised Joe Manchin multiple times. So he was saying, if what you mean, if the standard for who is an ally in the coalition, if you're willing to carve out exceptions for people like Joe Manchin, then what you're really saying is like, it comes down to it. Like, does it actually even come down to what you're saying is important?
It's a lot more complicated than just saying women ought to be doing this.
No, I didn't feel like being lobotomized by hearing Hutch say anything.
But not up to that point, because now it's just coming down to like your vibes versus my vibes.
No. I think it's
Gator Highlights 4. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat. I really, really appreciate your support. Straight cooking. Dude, I can't get over how white I look, man. I just wish I wasn't this pale.
Complicated, but I do think, again,
in this, I don't actually, I look a lot closer. The color that I am now, I look a lot closer to in person, even though it is winter.
Woman chose not to.
It's more complicated than just saying women ought to be doing this, but not up to that point, because now it's just coming down to like your vibes versus my vibes.
No. I think it's complicated, but I do think, again, if that woman chose not to have, I don't know anything about her, just like you don't know anything about Karoline Leavitt.
I don't know her personally. I can only look at what she does and go from there and try to make, draw inferences off of her behavior.
Right, but I think that's dangerous to just draw inferences.
Why is it dangerous?
That's how we do everything.
I would say it's dangerous to draw inferences. And the example that Andrew Wilson gives is bizarre.
We can't make observations about what people do and then make judgments from there. What's dangerous about that?
You can make a judgment, but I think is
it dangerous?
Well, I mean, it can be. Like, for instance, I have a rolling chair at my house, and I usually make the inference that if I sit back a certain way, it's not going to fall over, and sometimes it does, and that can be dangerous. So, yeah, I mean, inferences.
But we're talking about observations. We're not talking about the results from misjudging something. It's a weird way to, like, argue this. And when he said he meant a rocking chair. That's not dangerous. Again, I'm talking about making observations about people and making inferences is not dangerous. This is not an example of that.
Can be dangerous, but I think generally that's how we reason things out, is through logical inference. So the critique she's making is fair, right? My criticism to her was, look, you can't be using vibes. I was attacking the foundation more than anything. That was the end where
I know. That's the thing, is that I felt like, again, it just ended up feeling like a red herring, because he was saying you don't get to make that argument because we get into it, and I do think that this is actually like the weaker part of the debate, where we get into like the moral realism for whatever reason, because he drags it to force doctrine, which I fucking hate talking about because it doesn't tell you anything about the world. But anything that's not already trivially obvious to anybody with half a brain cell. But yeah, like he does have an issue with my foundation, or I should say lack thereof. But nonetheless, he was kind of attacking these tertiary arguments that I was making, when he should have been saying that the entire foundation is too shaky for you to even build off of it in the first place.
I was moving into, you can't just use your vibes as an arbitrary metric. But her criticism to you is also equally fair under that metric. It's like, well, when do we get to the specificity? So to move this kind of debate along here.
Well, let me kind of answer that. I think it might have to do with low dose cortisol in the workplace. If a woman goes into a job that stresses her out, it's going to cause fertility issues. But that's kind of up to the woman. Like, depending, some jobs are like, is she getting stressed out as a nurse, or does she love her job as a nurse?
That still sounds vibey, though.
It is vibey, because the different girl is going to have a different experience in the job. Some jobs, a woman is, no matter what.
Okay, like this, we love Ian. We love Ian. He's trying. Okay, he's trying to cook, and I'm here for it. But I think what he's saying is that Moonlord for the chaos roll. I saw a comment that was like, he couldn't stop rolling zeros. So what he's saying is that there could be, again, we're talking about white collar jobs though. So the idea that you could begin to become infertile because of like chronic elevated levels of cortisol. Does this happen? Yes. But to the extent that it happens, people usually are like immunocompromised, or they have issues like lupus, thyroid issues, etc., that make it such that like having elevated levels of cortisol for a sustained period of time is not actually solely a result of their environment, but because they already are genetically predisposed to be unable to deal with that like elevated cortisol levels in the first place. But that is not actually something that really is quantitative when they make the diagnoses. It's a lot of like self-reporting and qualitative data. So, but like, Andrew derisively calls that vibes. But
go in the military, you go to the front line, you're going to have cortisol.
Yeah, but a subjective experience that's largely based off of self-reporting and vibes.
Yeah,
At
totally.
what point you decide to invite like medical intervention?
No,
or
she's
say,
right.
Like,
I mean,
this is
that's
too
still
stressful, it's vibes.
that's still vibey, right? And so,
But it's not. He points out something a little more tangible is cortisol levels and.
How do you point out people being hypocritical without strawmanning? These debate perverts love saying that. Well, it's not so much that he was triggered that I was pointing out hypocrisy. He was only saying that hypocrisy does not actually address her argument, which is by definition true. Again, to quoque fallacy. To quoque, literally, U2 is a rhetorical technique that intends to discredit the opponent's arguments by attacking the opponent's own personal behavior and actions as being inconsistent with their argument, so that the opponent appears hypocritical. This specious reason is a special type of ad hom attack. The Oxford English Dictionary cites John Cook's 1614 stage play, The City Gallant, as the earliest known use of the term in the English language. Person A claims that statement X is true. Person B asserts that A's actions or past claims are inconsistent with the truth of claim X, therefore X is false, but those are not related to one another. Have you been on Jubilee? You are a great debater. No, I have connections to Jubilee, but they want me to pay for my own flight out to California, out to California, and I don't want to do that, so until they want to, have me do a surrounded or something and pay for me to go, I'm not doing that.
How those things affect. I mean, again, there are a wide range of women. I don't think
that pointing out hypocrisy is very convincing generally. Yeah, no, all you're doing, and usually when people do it, they're vaguely gesturing at it instead of making an argument. You're literally seeing this embarrassingly on full display from conservatives as they lose their mind over Billie Eilish saying that we're on stolen land and think that, you're rich though, LOL, is an actual rebuttal to that, which is one, objectively true. This is stolen land, whether you like it or not. And Billie Eilish never said that her house is not on stolen land, for two. And for three, she was not saying that, oh yeah, we're on stolen land, therefore anything short of me leaving my door unlocked and letting people come in and essay me, I'm a hypocrite, I guess. Moronic.
Think women have to be all one thing. I don't think all women have to be mothers. I
agree.
Yeah.
How did you learn to argue so well? Years of talking to men. Feminists agree with you. Yeah,
that's fine. But I do think there are a wide range of women. I don't think women have to be all one thing. I don't think all women have to be mothers. I agree. Yeah,
feminists agree with you. Yeah,
that's fine. But I do think there's a better.
How could she make this point? How could she make this point in service of the anti-feminist argument? Again, one more time.
Is cortisol levels and how those things affect. I mean, again, there are a wide range of women. I don't think women have to be all one thing. I don't think all women have to be mothers. I
agree.
Yeah.
Feminists agree with you. Yeah.
That's fine. But I do think there's a better.
Yeah. Again, I don't think all women have to be mothers. It's like, yeah, lady, again, choice. It's fine for some women to be homemakers and for others to not be.
Model for society to thrive.
Yeah, but the patriarchy agrees with her too.
In what respect?
That all women don't have to be mothers.
Yeah.
Okay. In that sense, yes.
That would be like, so the thing is like utilizing this idea that, feminists want this for women. Feminists also want to deconstruct patriarchy.
But she has prescriptions that I should have teased out more, which is that I really do think that she believes that over like 90% of men, barring some really, really like crazy circumstances, ought to be providing for their wife. And that even though you need a dual income household to support a child, that is typically done by both, parents contributing, but men should probably work harder so that they can earn a living for both them and their wife so she can stay home and raise the kids, is the argument. So she's saying you should endure some form of impractical economic hardship, even if it leads to worse outcomes for your kids, because it would still be better to be in their presence and around them and more valuable than the value that's added from having more money in your pocket and in your bank account to spend on them and give them more access to better resources by just working.
Systems.
Right.
So let me give you a logical argument.
Honestly,
here.
This is so much more of a productive and fun conversation because Tim is not here. LOL. Yeah, actually, I ended up being really happy that I was ambushed by Andrew Wilson don't like when producers do this. It's not the first time. It won't be the last that I was, and they weren't fully transparent with me with like the setup. They definitely, Andrew Wilson flew in, so they definitely knew he was going to be a guest. They, again, gave me a misleading topic. They did not tell me about reviving wokeness and communism or whatever. They tried to throw that in, and luckily Andrew Wilson has enough sense to see that like I was not interested in debating that. And I wasn't told I was going to debate that, and them not telling me Tim wasn't even going to be there and it was going to be Andrew Wilson. Don't really appreciate that, but whatever.
Okay, that I'd like you to
Tim
respond.
wasn't there. Nope. And Andrew Wilson was hosting the episode of the Timcast IRL live with Rob Noor tonight, like earlier tonight.
How can feminists do that without appealing to the patriarchy? How can they take down the patriarchal systems?
Right.
So let me give you a logical argument here, okay, that I'd like you to respond to. How can feminists do that without appealing to the patriarchy? How can they take down the patriarchy without then appealing to the patriarchy in an infinite regress?
How do you mean? Okay, so what his argument, if I had to steel man it based off what he's about to tell me, is, well, let me let him lay it out a little bit more, and then I will get into it.
Well, I would argue that men have the monopoly on force.
Okay.
Overwhelmingly,
Force
they have the
doctrine.
monopoly on force, and they always will have the monopoly on force. My proof and evidence is half of the world. Half of the world right now, if they decide women are enslaved, and did, they were. And women...
Okay, before he lays out more force doctrine or whatever, I'm assuming that his argument is if you need to access any any domain that men in this current existing patriarchal structure and society have dominion over, whether that be force, whether that be economic power, political power, etc., it is unavoidable that by using that, even with the intention of begetting egalitarian outcomes and trying to bring those about, you will actually it's unavoidable that you'll end up recreating and reifying the patriarchal structure that you were attempting to abolish by virtue of the fact that you are appealing to force, use of force, appealing to men, appealing to men's power. And so every single iteration of society that you create will therefore by definition be a patriarchal society. Now, as far as the logical coherence of his argument, premise, conclusion, it is valid. As far as it being true, it's not sound or whatever. I think that's how it goes if we're going off logical algebra here or whatever. I don't want to speak. Hold on.
And could never appeal to anybody except men for their rights because they don't have force. So because that's true, you tell me how it is that women...
But this is, again, the thing that throws a wrench in this to me is and you'll see it because Ian gets into it with him, is... How do you know that? And all he will appeal to is historical examples, or I guess lack thereof. And he's basically saying, well, it hasn't happened yet, therefore the likelihood that it's going to happen in the future is very, very rare. But there was a point in this country not that long ago where it was a fiction, and you sounded insane if you actually thought that people were, chattel slavery was going to be ending anytime soon. People actually were like, are you stupid? There's no evidence that that's going to be happening. The way that things are right now is how they're going to be probably into perpetuity. There's not going to be successful slave rebellions. People are we are always going to be able to enslave non-white people. But nonetheless, it happened. So this idea that because it hasn't happened in the past, it couldn't happen in the future makes no sense to me, for one, and it's just not true. And for two, I should have brought this up. I knew it. He will ask for this. I will not have it offhand. I should have said Rojava, man.
Women, feminists, how it's actually logical for them to say we're going to dismantle the patriarchy, even though via the force metric, they're going to infinitely have to appeal to it for their rights.
I think there's kind of an, to address your question, I'm not trying to avoid it. I just will say that I do take some issue with the framing that maybe you could help me clarify.
Sure.
I do remember you presenting this in a conversation that you had with Max Carson, where...
Haha, 80 watching. Do you know how many people 80 people is? Have you ever been in a room with 80 people? It ain't insignificant for a creator of my size, for one. For two, I have 125 on Twitch, dude.
You laid out this general premise.
It's not me saying that I'm Hassan levels of fame or whatever, but if you think that most people, most creators, most live streamers never break double-digit concurrence.
Force doctrine. This
Who's
is
Max Carson?
Mr. Girl.
Oh, yeah.
And I largely agreed with his view, which is that he feels that
I wonder if I could find this conversation between Andrew Wilson and Mr. Girl. Hold on.
don't want people just listening to Destiny.
Maybe they talk about this. Let's see. What about the actual thing? Hold on. I'm going to drag this off into the corner and look through the transcript, see if I can't find what I was talking about. You had set an issue with the framing that maybe you could help me clarify.
Sure.
I do remember you presenting this in a conversation that you had with Max Carson, where you laid out this general premise, force doctrine. This
Who's
is
Max Carson?
Mr. Girl.
Oh, yeah.
And I largely agreed with his view, which is that he feels that you would set up a system that presupposes that there is sort of this like unity that exists between like among men and among women very, very neatly. So you're saying like if all men wanted to enslave women, like they would be able to do it because men are stronger than women, etc.
Like half the world.
Right. But he
so it presupposes how most of the observable world actually operates.
In that respect, I was not disputing that men on average are stronger than women. I was only disputing that you are presupposing in the event that there was some gender war, it would fall that neatly and be bisected among male and female. I'm not even going to bring up the fact, but what about non-binary people? What about intersex people? I'm not even talking about that. You would see no shortage of a bunch of men defecting on the side of women or like being with women. And similarly, you would find women with reactionary attitudes that would be defecting to go join the men. It would not fall. It would fall along ideological lines as well as gender lines. And that's not what I'm taking issue with. The part that I'm taking there would be gender traitors. Issue with is just that it would break along these lines very neatly.
No. That's not the argument.
But what he presented to you is just that it would be like saying, like, if you have a group of people whose names start with the letter A, and then you have all the people whose names start with the letter B to Z, and all of those people work together to overcome the people whose names start with A, then yes, almost by definition, they would be able to like overcome the people with A, probably.
No. Well, yes, but also no. So let's copy out a few things.
When he said also yes, he was granting that premise, conclusion, like the logical argument that I just laid out is like true. But that is not analogous to his argument or not a rebuttal, or it didn't undermine his argument.
First and foremost, do you agree with me that there have been many revolutionary fights and slave revolts?
Yes.
Okay. Can you name any of them that were led or fought by women ever in history?
No, I don't believe so.
Ever in history?
No, I don't believe so.
One time in history?
No, I don't believe so.
So then what's going on?
Boudica, the Celts, they fought the Romans.
No, that was men, guaranteed. We can look it up.
Was a queen.
I mean, like they were
having a queen. Hang on. Having a queen there doesn't mean that the people who have the monopoly on force weren't men, because it's always men who have the monopoly on force. And so the reason she can't point to any time ever in history that slave revolts and things like this were ever in operation by women, women can never successfully take their freedom back from a patriarchal. Hang on, let me finish.
Okay.
They can never take their freedom back from a patriarchal force without appealing to a patriarchal force.
Also, just because I can't name them does not mean that they don't exist, for one. I will bring up the Viet Cong later, and he gives like a cope answer as to why we didn't actually technically lose that war, even though it's historical consensus that the U.S. lost that war. Harriet Tubman. Yes, I wanted to bring up Harriet Tubman, but the thing is obviously she was instrumental, and I didn't get to make the point. You will literally hear me interrupt at one point, and I didn't get to make it. I was going to bring up Harriet Tubman, but he is going to argue that it was not actually like warfare or combat or rebellion in the traditional sense. Like when we think rebellion, we think like Nat Turner's slave revolt. We think about the use of force, the use of violence to bring about political outcomes and goals. Harriet Tubman never did anything like that. I mean, not rebelling against the white population. I mean, there was force used against people to actually reject their enslavement, but it was not towards their oppressors. So
ever, not that
Harriet
queen,
was strapped.
Not any fucking queen, not any person ever in the history of all
mankind.
mankind.
Like you said, because it hasn't happened, it can't happen.
It can't.
But that's saying the only justification is because it hasn't happened yet.
No, the justification is that men are much, much stronger than women.
But guns are
overwhelmingly
for that purpose.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let's get 10 women in a room and hand them a magazine and watch what happens.
But the great equalizer, the ballistic, is
it's not a great equalizer.
Just
Ian,
like with the monkeys, the biggest, strongest monkey would be the alpha.
Yeah,
the other monkeys decide to kill him.
What happens is with these equalizers is men take the equalizer.
And again, at this point, I was just sitting back, letting them go. You don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake, nor when they are distracted by going after somebody who is not even necessarily like on my side. But Ian doesn't even make I mean, they're not the arguments that I would make, but, you know, he was kind of cooking here.
Away from women because they're much stronger, which is why you see all these police officers getting disarmed and women in combat getting their asses stomped. That's why you don't see female Navy SEALs. That's why you don't see any of that, because they can't do it. They're physically incapable of doing it. Now, even if I grant you an outlier, even if I grant you G.I. Jane.
Military leadership on June 2nd, 1863, Tubman became the first woman to lead an armed expedition in the Civil War. She commanded the Combahee River Raid, where she guided a group of 150 black soldiers from the 2nd South Carolina Volunteers. This raid successfully liberated more than 750 enslaved individuals from plantations along the river, marking a significant achievement in her military career. See, I could have brought this up, and here's what he would have said. She was primarily commanding men. It was the majority of slaves that were actually using force to resist their unjust enslavement were men. It was not primarily female slaves, so it wouldn't have satisfied his conditions.
Who never came to fruition.
But like, cause he'll push the goalpost, because even if you can find examples where it's like led by, he'll say no, but the movement itself also has to be comprised primarily of women.
G.I. Jane never existed, never came to fruition.
Oh, I know. Well, yeah, you know that.
Because they can't do it. But even if I granted you a G.I. Jane, an outlier, the exception would prove the rule. So the thing is like the reason she can't name a single time that there's been a successful slave revolt or women gaining their rights by force from men.
See, look, I should have brought this up. Inside Syria's women-led revolution. In the chaos of Syria's war in a region called Rojava, a revolution took shape. Women, some of whom were within the SDF or Syria Defense Forces, built a radically different political system based on gender equality and collective decision-making, and formed all-female armed units known as the YPJ that helped defeat ISIS. But after the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime, Syria's new governing forces moved to unify the country under a single national army and centralized rule. That push placed Rojava's women-led project in direct ideological conflict with the state as pressure mounted and the region faced the growing prospect of a war. So it's actually really unfortunate, though, because this is being reported on as it's being undermined. So even if I had thought to bring it up or whatever, he probably would have, if he had looked it up, he would have been like, yeah, but it's not successful. It's not going to be successful ultimately.
Dealing to men because it's never happened and it can't. So because of that, my argument is simply this. How do feminists ever take out the patriarchy without appealing to an enforcement arm, which is going to be necessarily patriarchal? How's that even possible?
Well, there could be robots.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there could be laser beams from outer space.
An enforcement arm that is not human male. Is that you're asking?
I can logically grant that a all-powerful gray alien species comes down here.
Drones.
And then you're appealing to the gray alien species to control the men.
For a type of force other than the human male that could be appealed to. I'm talking
who builds all the drones,
robots
Ian?
and ballistics.
Who builds all the drones?
At this point, more drones.
Who builds them?
Somebody built some drone that builds more drones.
Who builds them, Ian?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Super chats. Got distracted. There are super chats for that I need to thank people for. Thank you so much for donating to me. So, from Ben, $5. Didn't Wilson run from a convoy for their debate? Also, have you tried using humor or being sardonic to poke holes in their quote-unquote logic? # valid but unsound. How do you think people like this feel about women trying to be funny or make jokes? I'm basically saying heckle them in real time at this point. Look, it was taking everything that I had when Andrew Wilson interrupted me for like the I don't know how many time to not go quiet piggy and keep going, but maintained composure. Held frame. I didn't do it. I'll whip that out for like Tim Pool or something, okay?
I don't know. Somebody.
Men.
Could be men. Could
who
be
builds
women,
all the weapons? Men. Who knows how to use all the weapons?
Together.
Men. Who can carry all the weapons?
He adds all these qualifiers so that he can basically never be wrong, even when he is. We call that shifting the goalpost. Very, very nice tactic there.
It's men. Who can load all the tanks? Men.
It's not a 100% thing. There are women that also do that stuff.
But not the majority.
Well,
they're unique. Not everybody's the same, but they're more
Ian,
outliers.
how come these badass women don't go, hey, I'm tired of wearing this really hot fucking burqa in the middle of this sun, and we got like, millions of us, so we're just going to take out this patriarchy. Why not?
Well, they are stripping their burqas off in Iran.
They're and appealing to men to come in and help them.
Yeah, I mean, ballistic force, appealing to the force, basically.
Appealing to the force. So force doctrine, unbeatable, always appealing to the patriarchy. So answer me this question. How is it that women, feminists, how is it even a logical position to say that you want to repeal the patriarchy with full knowledge that you'll always have to appeal to the patriarchy in order to enforce your deconstruction of the patriarchy. It's like, it's the most circular, stupid thing I've ever heard.
I think you have to appeal to...
It's not circular. It's literally how every single liberation movement has ever been brought about. It has never fallen neatly among those lines. That's neatly among that. There have always been, I feel like the term ally is just like cringe at this point, but being completely serious, there has never been a successful liberation movement that did not include, that was solely led by the people that were trying to free themselves of unjust oppression or hierarchy. It has always included people from the class that was oppressing them being willing to help them. That has always been the case.
Force to
and who has
is appealing to men the same as appealing to the patriarchy? Well, yeah, that's what they argue.
On that.
Even though, again, you don't have to be. There are women who are anti-feminist, and there are men that are feminists.
State the human male.
Okay, so right this very second, if women want to deconstruct the
Also, this idea of like, how come if these women don't like it, how come they don't? One, there are areas of the world where women are just personally highly religious, and I'm not saying that they like oppression or they like, being subjugated and whatnot, but there's a significant amount of their lives as that they would voluntarily make the choice to adopt the customs that they live by and whatnot. Like they would wear burqas, for example. Okay. But the other thing is, he's like, how come they don't do it? And he's saying like they would need men, but it's like, well, these women don't have access to arms. But if they had access to arms, they really would they need that many men, to be honest, like in their ranks to overwhelm the might? Like if we're talking about like, Iran specifically, or if we're talking about like, MBS, right? And like their like liberal reforms and stuff like that. Like you're talking about people being systems that replicate themselves and are difficult to dismantle by virtue of the way that they were initially concocted. That includes, like, again, royal blood. Like he brings up like sovereigns, like female sovereigns, like Queen Elizabeth and stuff like that. There is no that at that point, like there's no the critical thing that you would need to undermine it would be, again, weaponry, not just men.
Patriarchy. Who do they have to appeal to?
Right. Yeah.
Men.
Yeah.
Can you steal man Ian's argument?
Yeah, Ian is saying, what if there was some technological marvel that equalized force?
Like guns.
I thought,
like this exists. Technological marvel, yeah, exactly. Like that already exists.
The sense that I got from your arguments is that right now the domain of force is, and this is your view as well, one that is overwhelmingly dictated by, supported by, and led by men. But there exists a world potentially where women could get access to this domain of force that either, I don't even think you're saying entirely excludes, but leads them to have an upper hand over men, right? Because you're saying all of this technology is basically the great equalizer, because between drones, tanks, guns, etc., if it's just a matter of...
Yeah, where?
No, I don't think that you're saying it's happened yet, but you're saying that we can't just say because it hasn't happened yet that it necessarily won't in the future.
And this all stuff originated, a lot of these weaponry that I'm talking about originated because
I feel like that was a pretty good steal, man.
Alpha male saying no one can stop me. I'm the biggest, strongest.
I'll tell you what,
it's not the strongest that survives. It's the one that's the most adaptable.
I'll tell you what, then advocate for feminism in 200 years where it's possible. But
okay, and he's like, he doesn't even think that, right? You can't advocate for feminism now without getting backlash under because force doctrine, though. Because force doctrine, did I mention force doctrine? You think he's going to be okay with it in 200 years? No. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. If you're not okay with people advocating for feminism now, and you're saying that the reason why force doctrine, a lot of it makes sense, is because when you look to the past, historical examples, people's past behaviors can be indicative and predict future events, future human behavior, etc. Let's take it down to you. You show no indication that 200 years from now, if Andrew Wilson, God forbid, could live for 200 years for whatever reason, you would be more okay with people talking about feminism, with people advocating for these sorts of things, than you are today. You would be just as hostile to them. But the thing is that in 2 years, if we continue on the trajectory that we're going now, you're, again, self-fulfilling prophecy, you will guarantee that women can't bring these things up to begin with.
It's definitely not right now. There's no world right this second which exists or has in the last
Does
7,000.
this asshole think control and influence only comes from force? No, he doesn't. He just thinks it's like this revelatory point when, again, it's like trivially obvious. It's like a trivially obvious observation that really doesn't tell you much about the world, in my opinion. Like, yeah, all of it, like your ability to enforce your rights is your ability. It comes down to your ability to assert those rights. And how do we assert rights? We assert it using force. But it is a domain that women can have access to and do have access to. That because they don't have the monopoly on it now doesn't mean that they couldn't in the future, right? But then if you're talking about physical strength or whatever, how relevant that is becoming, physical strength is becoming increasingly irrelevant in a post-industrialized 21st century world. Okay, that's only going to be the case going further. For one, as things become more and more automated. Andrew thinks all men like patriarchy. Yeah, it also presupposes that.
1,000 years where women can do anything.
But like there's soft power. Okay? There are like, why is it that Andrew Wilson doesn't beat and essay his wife? He's physically stronger than her. Why doesn't he do it? Maybe because it's against the law. But if that's the answer and you're saying, well, there's fear of penalty, that involves force because the state has the monopoly on violence. So he doesn't want to go to jail, right? But would Andrew Wilson, realistically, do men have to, in our current society, need to be worried about being prosecuted for sex crimes? No, they don't. So it's also a thing that he's capable of doing and getting away with, but yet nonetheless, he doesn't do it. So why don't you do it? Because reputational damage alone could be enough to be a deterrent, even if you didn't have the moral constitution to not engage in those behaviors. And even though I don't really like Andrew Wilson or agree with anything that he has to fucking say, I'm not just going to say that, oh yeah, this guy's probably predisposed to, abuse women sexually or otherwise or whatever. So I will just assume, innocent until proven guilty and that he doesn't do those things because in his view, not only is it wrong, but let me take the most cynical version of this man that I could present to you. He still might not do it because social forces and reputational damage alone can be enough of a soft power and deterrent for men doing these sorts of things.
But address their grievances to those who have the monopoly on force. That's always men. So you're necessarily
because
always...
domestic abuse is corny. Exactly.
It's going to have a patriarchy. It's a vicious circle.
No, that's the fallacy. Saying it always happened, therefore it will always happen.
A deterrent, but not a bar. But I'm not saying it's a bar. I'm saying it's literally, again, the bar is the extent to which he doesn't want to do it. But if he doesn't want to do it, not because he's scared of another man hurting him, not because he's even afraid of state prosecution or criminal penalties, but literally just because what if Rachel Wilson, his wife, goes and tells a bunch of people and they believe her, then that doesn't bode well for his economic prospects because there will be some damage for him doing that shit.
Happen is a misnomer.
I said appeal for it 200 years then so you're necessarily always going to have a patriarchy. It's a vicious circle.
No, that's the fallacy. Saying it always happened, therefore it will always happen is a misnomer.
I said appeal for it 200 years then when it does.
No, but what he's saying is that he's not saying it's literally impossible. And again, he's like not being charitable to Ian at all. He's not going to help him out. But Ian is saying that it's fallacious to believe that because something hasn't happened in the past, that it's necessarily highly improbable to happen. That's not necessarily entailed by the argument. Did you see the one where Ian mocked Christians being illogical? And Tim got upset and gaslit him by saying Ian couldn't even be aware of his own mind. No, I did not. Thank you so much for the $5. If somebody could link that, you would need to come to Twitch chat because I don't think you can drop links in YouTube without it going away. But I would definitely be interested in seeing that. That sounds horrible and unsurprising because if you've ever watched the Vosh debate between himself, Tim Pool, Ian Crossland, and one other producer for Timcast, there's a point where like the entire time Tim was like, dude, chill, shut up to Ian. Like you kept yelling at him for interjecting.
Happen. Or if we were asking about logical possibility, remember, Superman's logically possible.
Also, these people, again, if you want to talk about soft power, these people scapegoat trans people for every single societal ill. Are we under the belief that trans people have a significant amount of economic power, social power, or even really recognized for the people that they are on the scale that they ought to be? No. Nonetheless, You are using their pronouns even though you don't like it. You are using their chosen names even though you don't like it. Some people will even go so far as to affirm their gender even though you don't like it or agree with it or think it's true. Why? Because you're operating within Twitch TOS. But is that forced at that point? Well, no, it's not. You're making the voluntary choice that it's more important for you to prioritize not being deplatformed and not being in violation of TOS and complying with what you view to be the petty tyrannies of trans ideology and activists and conforming to this ideology. Because why? You're not under threat of force. It's because of social pressure and social coercion. The way that we get the way that we bring about change in most instances. It's not because we debate people out of it. If it's not coming down to force, it's because of immense social pressure.
Grant a logical possibility where aliens come down and put shock collars on men, and if they look at women cross-eyed, they get fucking zapped. That's logical. It could happen. Its possibility pragmatically is like fucking zero, though. So because of that, I'm going to look at this from pragmatic logic. Practical logic. If I'm looking at pragmatic...
Good God, look at the size of that rock. Her husband really must love her. Never seen a wedding ring that gives you carpal tunnel syndrome before. That's very nice, but this is not actually an engagement ring. I am engaged, but it's not an engagement ring.
And practical logic, Ian, I'm going to ask you again, right this second, if men want to appeal anything by power of law, who do they have to appeal to enforce it?
If women want to.
If women do. Women do.
Yeah, generally the government, which is usually run by men.
Who's the enforcement, though?
Yeah, cops.
It's going to be men.
Usually men.
It's always
big, strong, buff dudes.
Everywhere men. And if men decide to collectively enslave women tomorrow, let's just say they did.
No, that I don't agree with.
Okay, I'm not saying that you agree that it's morally correct. I'm asking whether or not they could do it.
They could try, and then other men would stand up to defend against it.
So who are you appealing to again?
Still.
We would be appealing to ourselves.
You'd be appealing to men again.
It could be men and
what
women.
you just got done saying is, if men came in and they tried enslaving women, men would stop them.
And women.
No, what Ian should have argued is that if you're at the point that there is defection from men to assist women in a liberatory movement, is that really a patriarchal structure that is attaching themselves to this movement? Or at that point, is it no longer really, is it rendered, like, again, impractical and almost illogical to say that they are necessarily patriarchal just by virtue of them being men? If they, again, are gender traders, quote unquote, sex traders, quote unquote, however you want to say it, or they're like, or again, they are trying to dismantle patriarchy themselves to the extent that they have the ability to do so on an individual scale.
Would stop them, and probably kids would stop them too.
Yeah, but who would those women and kids be appealing to for force?
Their rifle. They're what are you talking about?
Men. They'd be appealing to the men.
If a bunch of dudes came to enslave the women in your neighborhood, and
you guys, I've been engaged for like a while.
You and your wife and your kids grab their rifles. You would all be appealing to what? Are you talking? There's no
They'd
appeal.
be appeling to the men.
You'd be to God. Your right to self-defense.
I go back and forth between saying Lycan is my my boyfriend and my fiance, because literally like less than 30 days after Lycan and I met, we were already agreeing that we were going to get married.
In your neighborhood, and you and your wife and your kids grab their rifles. You would all be appealing to what? Are you talking? There's no
They'd
appeal.
be appealing to the men.
You'd be to God. Your right to self-defense.
Can I just say, if someone comes after me and
to God,
and they have a gun, I'm going to look to my husband with the gun. I mean, I might have the gun, but I'm going to look to my husband to protect me.
Like when she said, "Look to my husband," I was under the impression that she was married.
There gets to a point where he's going to hand you a rifle because the two of you are better shots than one of you.
Yeah, so 300 men, they invade a suburban neighborhood that has 700 women in it. Are they going to win?
What is the situation? So you're in a walled
700 women.
compound that is only 700
women, and they're in a suburban neighborhood, and 300 men come in there, and they're like, we're taking this shit.
Are the women strapped?
They're both strapped.
They're all strapped.
Is it really worth giving Andrew Wilson any attention? One, he's giving me attention. I'm not giving him attention. He is a much bigger creator than me. I can't platform him. He can only platform me. Go look at our subscriber counts. I have less than 3,000 on YouTube. On Twitch, I finally hit that 3K. But 6,000 collectively, and 7,000 followers on Twitter. And the Crucible has how many? Let me see. He's literally one of the most super chatted channels on all of YouTube. He has 295,000 subscribers. So I'm not giving Andrew Wilson attention. He's giving me attention, for one. And for two, I didn't choose to debate this guy. I came into the room and he was there. I was told that it was gonna be Tim Pool, not him.
Probably
Yeah.
700 people are going to wipe those dudes
Oh,
out.
come
They
on,
they
Ian.
can shoot from windows. These guys are walking down streets.
Oh,
what
Ian.
a tactical disadvantage. Are they train killers? Who are these men?
Yeah, okay. Ian,
Just
let's
random
find
men?
out. Let's find out if this is true.
He's
let's
like,
just
I need more stats, bro.
let's just take a logical exercise here. You are a prison warden, and you're offered two choices for those who can guard your prisoners. You'll either get twice the women or half the men to guard these prisoners. Now, these are the worst fucking prisoners on planet Earth. They're big, they're mean, they're strong, and they're fucking awful. Now, remember, you're going to get 2 women for every 1 male guard.
This scenario wouldn't be so clean cut. Ian is right. Yeah, of course, it's like what you said earlier, Blaster Master. He introduces every single time there's a rebuttal, he introduces another condition that undermines, that refutes the claim. But then he kind of wants to revert back to just the basic premise of force doctrine, but it only holds up every single time you add additional conditions.
Which one are you going to choose?
The men.
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, so anyway, back to the
They're
debate.
not shooting to kill, though, dude. If you want to give me 700 rifles and you take 300 rifles, I'll take 700 rifles.
Okay. How about
if your guys are trained Navy SEALs?
What if I
now
give
it's a
you
different
3
argument.
women per 1 man?
Are they armed? What
Yes.
are you talking about?
Hang on.
They have
All
rifles
things
to
are
shoot to
equal.
kill?
Yeah, again, it's like almost like it's not that simple. What would you rather have? A battalion that is filled with 300 men, but they don't know how to use any weaponry. They have no military training or background or anything like that. Or 150 women, but they're all strapped and they have a modest level of infantry training. You would go with the women in that instance. Sorry, they have guns. They know how to use them, even if they're smaller. If they have better strategies, if they have better tactics, if they have better weaponry, and they know how to use it, they would be able to put up a fight against a battalion of 300 men.
Guard towers, you can still have some women who are armed. The ones who have to patrol the floor, though, they're
Look,
women.
if I need dudes in hand-to-hand combat, that's its own thing. But if I need guards with guns, I'm going to take the triple.
FYI, women snipers were notorious killers in World War II, one woman killing hundreds of men. There's tons of examples that disprove his point. No, he does it because he'll say it's the exception and that like those were not primarily armies primarily comprised of women. You're finding exceptions, but I mean, women were like Auschwitz guards, okay? Like there are women that are complicit in these sorts of things in different ways.
Well, the guns. What do you?
Yeah, in the towers. You're going to take guards in the tower.
They get tripped up on but is it force though? Is it force though? Is it force? And it's like the point being made is that there are things other than brute force that can be more, that can leave a longer, that can make more of an impression. The pen is mightier than the sword.
Triple the I get it, but who's walking the floor, Ian?
Put some, I don't know, big burly dudes down there.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's not the argument. Your argument is that men can arbitrarily enslave women because they're stronger. I mean, it's almost like black and white, like lack of
let me ask you a question.
Like they can, but he's like, if men wanted to enslave all women tomorrow, they could. But if you want to talk about things that are highly impractical, even with as low, again, no one's opinion of men gets lower than my opinion of men. Okay. I still think it's highly improbable that tomorrow there's going to be a significant, that all men are going to decide to, or even half of all men, or even a quarter of all men are going to wake up and decide to enslave women in this country. Thankfully.
That's why we built guns to defend against that mentality.
Help me out. In Iraq, was there a right to own an AK-47?
I don't know.
There was. How come the wind didn't overthrow the vicious patriarchy?
In Iraq?
Yeah.
Are you talking about?
In Iraq, did women have access to... Did women have a right to guns in Iraq? Maybe they did. Stop showing your titties. Make me. Let's see. This is Human Rights Watch. November 2003. Historically, Iraqi women and girls have enjoyed relatively more rights than many of their counterparts in the Middle East. The Iraqi Provisional Constitution, drafted in 1970, formally guaranteed equal rights to women and other laws, specifically ensured their right to vote, attend school, run for political office, and own property. Yet since the 1991 Gulf War, the position of women within Iraqi society has deteriorated rapidly. Women and girls are disproportionately affected by the economic consequences of the UN sanctions and lacked access to food, healthcare, and education. These effects were compounded by changes in the law that restricted women's mobility and access to the formal sector in an effort to ensure jobs to men and appease conservative, religious, and tribal groups. Wow, it's almost like there were other mitigating circumstances that aggravated conditions such that even though women had access to arms, it was not the only thing that dictated whether or not they could use it for a liberatory struggle or resistance to the United States. Like, it's literally saying that like lack of access to basic necessities or the ability to have sustenance, a job, etc. Like, how much fighting can you do if you literally don't even have food and water and shelter?
Saddam Hussein?
Yeah. How come the women, even though you could have an AK in every home, how come the women didn't grab that AK and just go, I don't know, I want my rights?
Did they want to?
Did they? Yeah. Well, don't they want to? Would you want to live in oppressive heat with your burqa?
I don't think they wanted to overthrow
It's because they fucking can't, bro. They can't do it. There's never been a female revolution ever using physical force against men, which
Rojava
has ever been successful or even really tried.
The French Revolution.
Okay, because he said or even really tried. That's just not true. Rojava.
Which is full of men who
was started by women, dude.
Who was taking the men to the guillotines?
Who got the weapons out of the Bastille? It was the women,
bro.
People will take you more seriously. I think it's really cute if you really think that, like, again, if I don't dress quite so like scantily clad or whatever, I would be taken more seriously. They would just use different arguments to delegitimize it. My opponent literally works for the Heritage Foundation, is absolutely a fucking cuck and doesn't even stand up for her own basic human rights in this conversation, and it doesn't matter because she's still not based enough for these people. They were pointing out the fact that she has a wrist tattoo. I saw it in the comments saying that she doesn't know what she's fucking doing because of that alone.
Oh, who was using them?
They all did.
No, it was the men, dude. Come on.
Are you unfamiliar with the women that started the French Revolution?
Ian, let's walk through the French Revolution.
Have you thought about the Roman Empire lately?
Who was taking the people to the guillotines?
I mean, I wasn't there.
Men.
You're saying 100% men? Is this your argument? It was.
I'm gonna use that. I mean, I wasn't there. You can't ask me, questions on history.
All men.
Almost. Yeah.
No women. All men.
Yeah, basically all men.
I cannot believe that's an extreme.
I'll tell you what. I'll just grant it. It's 5% women.
Dude, the women started the revolution, bro. Do you not know that?
I'll just grant it for you. That it's 5% women
the women started the communist revolution in Russia too.
Yeah. So what? It has nothing to do with force doctrine.
Overthrow of the government, bro.
Nothing to do.
You just said there was no successful revolution started by women ever.
No. With physical force.
That was the French Revolution.
He also said, I wish Ian had caught it. He also said, or even really been tried. That is just objectively not true.
What are you talking? They robbed the bank. Sorry to interrupt.
Because again, he's found an example. It's a modest one. It's a small one. But my understanding is that, yeah, the thing that ignited the French Revolution, they're kind of shot heard around the world or whatever. It was started with like women and bread or something like that. I don't fucking know, but it was women, right? And now he's trying to carve out an exception for it and say, oh, well, who cares? It's just one.
Point.
Let's pretend for a second that you have 8,000 women in cages, okay? Who are slaves.
I thought you were serious, El Diablo, for a second. Aaron, why are you wasting your time debating the right when you should be attacking the lefties that don't belong in our coalition? I know. What am I doing here?
And then you have slave masters, okay? Can we point to instances in history where those all men who were in cages, right,
what if women decided to sterilize themselves tomorrow? So civilization collapses. I mean, we ain't hurting for people, but yeah, on a long enough time scale, yeah.
Successfully overthrown their oppressors.
You said there's women in cages?
No, men.
Okay, so there's 800 men.
There's 8,000 men in cages.
8,000 men in cages. Mm-hmm. Has there ever been an instance in history where they've overthrown the dudes without external help?
No. Well, yeah, even without external help.
Not that I know of. I mean, people in cages, they're in cages.
The answer is yes. There has been many.
Like, what are we talking about here? Like chattel slavery? How is it that people that are 8,000 people confined to cages are even going to be able to liberate themselves?
Rebellions.
What example of this exists or whatever that he's talking about?
Were successful, led by men, of all men. Not a single one by women. Hang on. Ever. Not a single one will you ever be able to point to historically where women were enslaved in mass by men and ever were able to successfully use force, stop Ian, to get out of their enslavement. Not once.
Stop,
they
Ian.
always have to appeal to males. Always. Which is why when I gave her the example, she was forced to agree. There's no choice around it. You always have to appeal to male force. There's no way around it. You're talking about women using like
I was forced to agree, by which he means he asked me, can you name any instance of this? And I said, no, I cannot. I did not say there are 0 instances of it ever. There's no documented historical evidence that this has occurred. He is the one making that claim.
Speakers and propaganda and shit to start fights, sure, but they're not fighting the fights.
Can't stand people get enjoyment from arguing. You have your thoughts, I have mine. There's no way around convincing you of mine. Mackie, MCC, this is not the Twitch stream for you if that is how you feel.
My point. They're always appealing.
But I guess I can't change your mind, right? Because you have your beliefs and I have mine.
to people who can. That's the point. And so if it's the patriarchy that we're talking about,
guns, even if we consider what he is saying to be true, we have guns now, you don't need strength to wield it. Oh, he will bring that up, that actually you do need strength to wield it. He said, he literally asked him, would you agree that it requires some strength to use a gun, which is just, again, trivially obvious.
It's always going.
Would you agree that you need arms to use a gun, Ian? Would you agree that you need a finger to pull the trigger?
To be those who have a monopoly on force. So women, these feminists, are always going to have to appeal to those who have the monopoly on force, thus creating a new patriarchy. It's just like an over and over and over again cyclical. It's just cyclical logic. It's bizarre. It makes no sense.
But I just don't think that the monopoly on force equals male necessarily.
Yeah, it equals male.
It usually does, because men are physically stronger. But then we built guns. Yeah. It's a relatively new invention, and now you started to see like even men kind of don't have a monopoly on force. Like we have robots that can drone bomb shit. Like we don't.
The robots.
I love Ian, man. He's a beautiful mind. I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. We are at I'm not going to say we're at an age of like unprecedented technological advancement, but I do speak up and say, more and more like warfare is going to be what we understand to be clean warfare. We're going to have increasingly precise military, missiles, tanks, tools that we can use and make precision strikes against military targets. And if anything, the drawback to this is now that there is not really that if we want to militarily intervene in a region, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that there is going to be a ton of like incurring a bunch of casualties of American military personnel, which makes it all the more easier to engage in offensive military action. So in this way, even though the killing is less intimate and it is more precise, you might actually find higher instances of violence now or on the long term because we're more trigger happy because there's sort of this we don't have to deal with like the visceral imagery of what warfare looks like.
Dude, I'm sorry. Do robots operate and build themselves or something?
And the less collateral damage, aka civilian casualties that occur because of these more precise military armaments and gear, etc. Like the more people will be okay with co-signing and being in favor of military action.
Not yet, but we're starting to lose the monopoly on force as human men.
No, we're not.
I mean, dude, a whole village can get blown up by an airplane.
Yeah, you're talking about like clean warfare. Like largely a lot of it's happening from like the fucking sky because you have people just piloting drones. You don't have men like rushing out into warfare anymore. Yeah. Like always. Or
unless you're in the Ukraine and you're in trenches and you're fighing combat.
Okay, but Ukraine, this actually doesn't help his argument though, because Russia said that they would be able to defeat Ukraine in like 3 days. How long has it been? How long have they been trying to capture that territory? How's that going? I'm not saying that Russia doesn't have the upper hand in the conflict still. I'm just saying it's obviously not as simple as they intended. You have instances of documented where Russians were shooting other Russian soldiers because they were trying to flee the battlefield because they don't want to be participating. They're struggling with conscription. The Russian economy is not actually as like strong or resilient as people think, even though they have nukes, they're a nuclear superpower and whatnot, yet nonetheless they are struggling to take over this territory. It is not a foregone conclusion that just because you are the military superpower that you're going to be able to prevail.
And the women all fled. They all fled. Women all fled. They're all.
Why is a man that can't open a jar talking about physical force? Hey, that jar was greasy, man.
Different countries, they got the fuck out of there. They hightailed it. They're not in the trenches fighting, Ian. How come? That's really weird.
I'm not there, man.
That's really weird. Where are all these fucking? I
thought your point was that we're largely moving away from like the sort of trench warfare or whatever.
But
yeah,
we're
exactly.
Not.
And we're starting to move towards like informational warfare, drone warfare, AI warfare, etc.
There will always be trench warfare. There will always be guys getting up in each other's faces. But yeah, ballistics have altered the way force is wielded and the way monopoly is drawn.
Oh yeah, is that so?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. All things equal between a man and a woman, right? You give them both a gun, right? One of them has to watch your back. Who are you picking?
It's such a vague question. I don't know them.
You don't know
who
them.
Are they?
You're just
Again, Andrew Wilson is presupposing that Ian is going to make the assumption that we are to assume that the average woman or the woman in this instance or whatever isn't more skilled or is physically weaker or whatever, but you don't know. Like on average, yeah, the woman will likely be physically smaller than the man. That doesn't mean that she's necessarily going to be a better marksman. She could still be better with a gun. You don't know that.
Pick two. It's gonna
if you think, and then even from there, you're like trying to maximize for like again, like the how do I put this into words? You're talking about trying to maximize the likelihood that it would be the better choice by like almost statistically insignificant margins.
Completely random. You're going to push a button. It's going to be a random woman or a random man who shows up with a gun to watch your back. Which button you pushing, Ian?
I don't know, man.
You don't know?
I don't know.
You're not sure?
Ian, my boy, my feminist.
I can get it over with?
Yeah,
like,
that's
what
right.
if Kamala Harris
That's
had become
right.
president? Who would have had the monopoly on force?
I choose the bear.
It's still always going to defer to the enforcement arm. They're always going to have the monopoly on
I'm
force.
sorry, you said they always look to their leader, right? They
Ogre boy, fuck off. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to radio.
look to the one to lead them.
You
Who would
can
be
look.
leading them? A
You
woman?
can. Here's the thing.
I
you
would
look
like to. I actually don't want to send my viewers into someone who's like reviewing this or whatever, because I'm going to have to head off in a little while, and I don't want to. I want to finish the rest of this tomorrow.
leadership unless you get to overthrow.
Well, now you're just saying that leadership doesn't matter, and that's dismantles your initial argument that people
not
have
saying
to appeal to
leadership doesn't matter. I'm saying that men always have an option of force to change leadership, and women don't.
Yeah, that argument is saying then leadership doesn't matter.
No,
because we can just overthrow it anyway. So it always comes back to whoever
men
wants it.
can overthrow it.
I don't know.
Not women.
Women can also overthrow.
No,
Okay, but like, why didn't they? You have instances where, again, men were obedient to the fucking monarchy. That is the head of state. That is as a female sovereign. I mean, that's a far cry from saying it's a matriarchal structure, because royal families it's more complicated than that. But if men were really this resistant to all instances of female hierarchy, you wouldn't have seen the deference to the crown, and it wouldn't have mattered that they had a royal bloodline or whatever. Would have been off with their freaking head, and that's just not what happened.
They can't.
People with weapons can
And they're really in the trenches on this argument. Boo.
overthrow systems of humans.
Yeah. Then when's the last time women did that ever?
I just said they can. I didn't say they did.
They can't.
I said they can.
They can't. They don't have the physical
If Kamala
prowess to
had been
do
the
it.
president and the issue for the drone bombs, it would have been much easier for a female to take some physical. Like, I don't want to dominate this combo. but I think
She's going to use drones that men built in order to
Perhaps.
dominate her enemies.
Yeah, that's adaptability.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's gonna. What's gonna happen?
I
is
love how he, again, earnestly makes the argument. Again, that's adaptability, bitch. Yeah, it is.
in order to dominate her enemies.
Like a funny voice is actually, and asking a rhetorical question is actually not an argument if we're going to get into prop logic and formalism and all of that or whatever. That's not actually a rebuttal to what he said.
Adaptability.
Yeah, she's gonna. What's gonna happen is this: is that if men want to change
It's
the
so
condition,
funny to watch. Like Ian, bless his heart, again, Helldivers, Stoner, Gamer Boy, risk mentality, figuring it in the fucking trenches. Being like, actually, yeah, it's not as simple as just like, oh, that you can't always assume that the man's going to be better. Again, the average man at this point is probably maybe more likely than the average woman to be overweight. Does that put them at an advantage for strength? I mean, maybe for strength, but if they can't run, that puts them at a disadvantage in another significant way.
conditionals of the state they're in, they have the option to, and women don't. And that's
Andrew invests way too much in sweeping generalizations. Ronda Rousey would beat his weak ass in seconds. I was talking to Ogre Boy earlier, and he was like, he needs to be put in a room and be forced to like debate this with like some fucking muscle mommy who could like be physically intimidating over him and like tell him what's what and laugh in his face about fucking forced doctrine. It would literally be anecdotal and like outliers, but it would be very entertaining.
a fact. And so the thing is that if men universally decide that they're going to enslave women, there isn't a fucking thing in the world women can do about it. But if portions of men decide that they're going to enslave men, there's something men can do about it.
But the thing, no,
yeah,
you
that's
mentioned
the
this
most
too,
historically
and, like, men are not a
accurate
monolith.
fact on planet
Yeah,
Earth.
but you're saying if this total
Hit me with he was like, you mentioned this too, Aaron. See, I got like, this is always great because again, there were different points where Andrew bolstered my points and he said that's true and like gave me my props when I pointed out contradictions and in Jennifer's argument. And here, Ian, I'm late assist.
incapable.
No,
thing.
no,
All
right
men
now
are
is not
if all men come together.
Not all men.
This is your
even.
position.
If it's the case that in the Middle East, the Middle Easterners want to enslave women, didn't they?
Forced doctrine is just might makes right. He's saying forced doctrine is just the observation that might makes. But again, you don't really get much from that trivially obvious fact, which is that anybody who has the monopoly on violence is going to prevail, is going to be able to enforce their rights over somebody who doesn't.
They already do that.
The thing that's controversial is that he presupposes that this is a domain that only men can access.
Yeah, but that's
how come?
different.
Why
You're
didn't
talking about the theocracy, the Iranian theocracy?
So yeah, well, any place you want to look at across the world where women are second-class citizens, can women do shit about that without appealing to men?
I don't know, but the point that you made is
no.
that...
Answer the question. Can women do shit?
I can answer the question any way I want to answer the question.
Yeah, but you have to actually answer the question I'm asking.
No, I don't have to. I can answer whatever
that's
I
fine.
want.
I mean, you can
however I want.
obfuscate.
If you don't like it, that's still my answer.
Oh, okay. Well, then your answer is I don't like your question.
You like gish gallop 3 questions in a row.
I didn't gish gallop anything.
I'm trying to disprove your first point.
I'm
asking 2 questions about
I'm only
the
asking
Middle Eastern
one
slave
question
women.
I want actually answered.
Give it to me again.
Okay. The question I want answered is right this second in the Middle East. Okay. If women wanted to determine to get their rights back themselves, right, without appealing to men, can they do it or not?
They'd have to appeal to like an external authority. Similar to the American revolutionaries. They couldn't do it alone. They had to appeal to the French. Like when you're under the boot, it's hard to get out without appealing to, but it doesn't have to be a man. It could be a queen, Queen Elizabeth or whatever. It could have been.
Or you got to flip people. You got to find defectors, like male defectors that are willing to fight on their side.
Males again. Back to males again.
Oh, I mean, females make the best spies.
Yeah.
I know, but again, like they're always talking about, the degeneracy that is prevailing among the West or whatever. Like these are sissy men. This is how they would describe them. These are emasculated men. These are feminized men. They would not see them as men that are meaningfully upholding the patriarchy if they are at the point that not only do they possess those characteristics that Andrew Wilson views to be undesirable or unmanly, but they are also at the point that they are literally siding with women to help further their liberation or movements for social equality. At what point are they meaningfully part of a patriarchal structure?
You're always appealing to those pesky men for force, and there's nothing you can do about it. Every single time. And that's why force doctrine is an unbeatable position, because it's the observable fact of the world.
That I agree with. Force doctrine, yeah. But I don't think it always has to be a male in control of it.
But it is always
I agree with it. This is literally my argument. I agree with the force doctrine. It's trivially true. It's trivially obvious. I don't agree that it's a domain that only men can access. It's just the one that they access right now.
In control of it.
Queen Elizabeth is an example of someone that was a dominating military force. That was not
of who? A dominating military force made up of which sex?
All of them.
Men
and their wives, and they were the dude go out on the boats.
If we look up, can we find out what percentage of her military was men real quick?
Yeah, but dude, earlier you were talking about how people appeal to their leader. Like the masculine, that you're always going to appeal to.
Talking about who can change the conditionals of their leader.
The argument that strength
and women can
gives you primary control is a fallacy. It is adaptability. Strength.
What's the fallacy?
That the stronger you are, the more likely you are to be in control.
That's not fallacious.
No, strength.
It's just untrue, is what he should say, not fallacious.
Fallacy.
That the stronger you are, the more likely you are to be in control.
That's not fallacious.
No, strength has diminishing return.
Yeah, but
and it also makes you a target.
But that's not logically fallacious.
And it's not logically fallacious, but it is true. Like again, let's contend with what he's saying. He is saying that it's kind of like what is this? Is this the sexy sun hypothesis? I'm trying to think. This is a concept that I learned in ecology, that there is equilibrium that occurs between mammals, non-mammals, etc., as they mate, because females, especially in let's use peacocks, okay? The male birds are the ones that are actually ornate. They have the most elaborate designs to attract female mates, and the females look really plain. And the male peacocks that look the most impressive, that boast the most vivid colors, ornate feathers, etc., they are the ones that are more likely to reproduce. But if they eventually that starts to trend towards an extreme, and even though you get these beautiful male peacocks, they become vulnerable because it's easier for predators to spot them, because they lack the ability to camouflage past a certain point, because they are so ornate, they stand out so much that it actually makes them a vulnerability. And then you see equilibrium kick back in, because they end up being killed and more likely to be prey in more instances than the less ornate ones. And from there, females are more likely to kind of revert back towards the mean and mate with male peacocks that are not as, grand looking, etc. So what Ian is saying is not only just true, but an observable reality that we see in the animal kingdom. So what he's saying is, having an exorbitant amount of strength, that can also, if you cannot adapt to your surroundings, your circumstances, that can just put a target on your back and be a vulnerability in and of itself.
Argument, that would be a proposition. And so the thing is that propositionally, there's no fallacy there to make that statement, especially if it's observably true, and it is.
No.
Yes.
The strongest men are often the easiest to destroy.
Sure, by other men.
By guns, by people with guns. I'm not talking.
Wielded by men.
Hand-to-hand combat, dude. It still exists. But that age of like men can strangle their woman until she does what he says is gone. I mean, you technically can, but there can't.
Okay, well, that ain't gone, Ian. Newsflash, that ain't gone, unfortunately. In some parts of the world, a woman looking at another man can get you fucking hung, okay? So, or hanged is the right word. But yeah, that's not true. But I know what he's getting at. Men are past the point where they have to bonk women over the head and go ooga booga booga just to get what they want.
Cameras on you now.
Do guns require hand strength?
A little.
Yeah. Do they require you to be able to carry a lot of equipment with you? Do you have to feed yourself? Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. You don't have to. Well, yeah. If you're going to use guns for the purpose of combat, you're going to be carrying a kit. You're going to be carrying a kit. You're going to be carrying food. You're going to be carrying all sorts of other equipment. Not to mention that
you just carry in Florida.
You're going to carry 300, 400 rounds of ammunition. You're going to carry it in a chest rig. Then you're going to carry a sidearm on top of that. Then you're going to have your helmet on. Then you're going to have body armor. You're going to have all this stuff.
I'm talking about carrying. Your gun in Florida, bro. In your belt, on your holster. That's all you got.
That's not joining the military. That's not collective defense, or it's not collective assault. That's not how that works.
Can I just say, even if I have a gun, and a man wants, depending on positioning, a man can always overpower me. He can wrestle the gun from me. He will be by brute force.
This is you are assuming so much by this. Again, we are individual people are not statistics. Broad statistical averages, broad population stats are not going to be able to help you in individual particular situations. It's not necessarily true, especially somebody who's a former fitness instructor, that a man is, just by virtue of being a man, is going to be stronger and be able to get a gun away from her.
Stronger than I will be in a certain position. Now, could I shoot him? I mean, I went shooting with my boyfriend the other week. He's just a better shot than I am. He's maybe if I practice more, but I do think no matter what, most men will be better shots than women. And then if I have a gun in that situation, it's just I will probably panic more. I will probably not feel as
this is so
confident with a gun.
It's so cucked.
And a man can overpower me, even with a gun.
So cucked. So do you think that women should have Second Amendment rights?
Sure.
Yes. It doesn't mean that they're not better at it, that they are not physically more capable of wielding. Like he said, if you're in combat, there's a lot of other factors. There's you have to carry more. You have to carry rounds of ammunition. You have to be there's differences between men and women. And we can go swirl down in these arguments over and over and over again. But there's differences. And the more we deny that, and the more we deny that those differences have consequences out in the real world, in jobs, in the military.
Okay, this one coming up. I'm not gonna lie, I was proud of myself for this one. It's
just, it gets exhausting. I'm listening to the two of you and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's differences. And,
I would be
usually the men
as well if somebody denied that there were differences between men and women, because obviously there are. I don't dispute that. And
but then
I would be on your side that anybody who's trying to is a moron.
Because that's how we've gotten to this point where some people believe there are no differences, and a man can be a woman, and a woman can be a man. That feminists just paved the way for that.
I think that they recognize those differences because if you're talking about trans individuals, they want to transition because they recognize differences between themselves as men and versus as women. No, they don't. Right?
No,
they're actually trying to transition so they can go from being a man to being a trans woman.
There's no such thing as a trans woman.
What you just said, if they really don't believe that there's any difference, why would they ever transition?
The argument is if you're a gay man, why can't you just be a gay man? Why do you have to be a woman?
We're not talking about gay men. We're talking about trans people. That's people's sexuality.
Right. And if
let me steelman her position really quick. What she's saying is that the feminist lie is that the differences that exist between the physiological and biological differences that exist between men and women are so negligible that physical transition, chemical transition, etc. is relatively easy, and that one can become a man or a woman relatively easily because you're really just kind of refining things and tinkering around the edges to be able to get that outcome, and that there's not actually that much of a difference between the two sexes, etc. But trans people don't think this. If they thought that, they would not be undergoing transition.
Sexuality is just so. Who do trans women want to have sex with?
Who's the white goth woman arguing with the cuck woman? I do not look fucking goth in this, even if I'm that pale. If anything, I look like a fucking Jersey housewife or something. I didn't realize how kind of like the aesthetic that ends up happening when I have like this set on and like this top and this jewelry or whatever. I probably wouldn't do it again.
Anybody? Again, sexuality. I'm only talking about, you said that there are these people that think that there's no differences between the sexes. And if that were the case, why would they be bothering to undergo a physical transition or a medical transition if they really believe, oh, men and women, there's really no differences between us or whatever. You wouldn't even see trans people if that were the case. Or to the extent that you saw it as a phenomenon, it would literally be refined to just like social transition and like cross-dressing and changing their names. But they take cross-sex hormones, they take puberty blockers or whatever because they recognize that there's differences between the sexes.
But they're trying to be something they're not. They will never be
okay,
women.
But that's a separate argument from whether or not they believe that there are differences between the sexes. Trans people recognize that there are differences, which is why they want to transition. Andrew, do you disagree with this? Or
of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
Luckily, we didn't get bogged down into the trans argument. Not because I was trying to avoid it. I mean, I didn't really want to go down that route, but I would have been willing to do it. But because I wanted to return back to something that he said on Forced Doctrine. But she literally had nothing to fucking say about that. Just chef's kiss. Chef's fucking kiss, you guys. I gotta say, I was happy. To people that just joined, if you aren't following me yet, you should go ahead and do so. Whether you're watching on Twitch or if you're watching on YouTube, you should subscribe to me. That way you can know when I go live. You should also like my stream. That way you can push it out to other people. It really helps in the algorithm. I would really, really appreciate any support from you guys. But if you do want to support me, the best way that you can do so is by donating through the Streamlabs link that is pinned in my Twitch chat or in my YouTube description box. You can also join the Ponscum Discord where I hang out for the most part. Whenever I'm not streaming, you can ping me, talk to me there if you want. If you want to sub to me on Twitch, you will get access to an ad-free experience as well as cute emotes. You can also give subs throughout the chat if you're feeling that generous, and you just might be the lucky recipient of a gifted sub. Wouldn't that be fucking amazing? So yeah, there is about 40 minutes left in this. I will finish the rest tomorrow. If you are watching on Twitch, you are headed over to Ogreboy. Let him know that Straighterade sent you. Thank you so much for spending your Friday night with me. And on YouTube, the person who I want to raid, Adam Khan, who's fantastic and just Jubilee debates, unfortunately does not allow redirects. So I've dropped a link to his YouTube stream, because he's live right now, in the YouTube comment section. I would really appreciate if you did like an unofficial Straighterade, okay, over to Adam, send him some love, go support him, he rules. He doesn't know who I am, so he's gonna be like, who? But yeah, go watch Adam. He's trying to grow. Ben, thank you so much for the $5. Dicto, simplicity or fallacy. Also, isn't a woman the dart throwing champion? They lack intellectual rigor. Pseudo profound BS study on display. It was quite a thing to behold to watch a woman debase herself this much, but that's literally what she's paid to do. What can you do about it if not just BTFOM in the marketplace of ideas instead of using Forced Doctrine, which is cringe. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.